what? Yes.
Every single thing that is done from Ghana. So the governing board of each
Okay, we're going to get started
is
precisely at 8 o'clock on the dot. So regardless of who's here, who's not here, Group 1 is going first, so is Group 1 here? Where are your other team members?
They're driving, and I'm going to kill all of them. So.
I would lock the door at 8 o'clock. That's my secret.
Well, my head, yeah. So, I know.
I need your team is here? You're going to have to carry all this weight?
That's fine. I'll do it. I don't care.
Aaron, you do.
I will.
You're good.
Realize. Okay. Okay.
Other than that,
I wouldn't make a bullet. I just want to see if you did it.
There's a lot of boys in my
Okay, of all the teams got their PowerPoints loaded in, whichever system?
Can I upload? Can I just use my laptop?
Preferably not. We need this to be as seamless as possible from one group to the next.
Waiting for it to load up.
Yeah, as soon as mine finishes loading up.
down until after light is showing up. I looked on the internet, a forest management office. Did you know that?
No, it's very nice. I started when I was still working at Regency, so I had to keep it separate, but now a bunch of apartment buildings and houses around there.
Where are you?
Okay.
Do you see Neely?
Who?
Terrible. Yeah, for 9 years.
Take your USB out. Do that upload now.
Threw me off.
Take out your USB.
They manage forest land.
All low-income housing, all in Northwest.
That's a big difference.
Very different. Yeah. I really did the written.
You just look on the written.
Yeah, good.
He's got the book for afterwards.
Victoria's not here. She's usually on time. Who knows if Conan will come?
I haven't seen everybody. Yeah. Something like that.
That bigger figure than me.
Kind of nervous. There's 5 classes. Well, no, I guess. No, so I took just those 2 classes, which were like ethics and law.
So your buddy's here, right?
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
I know, I've been non-stop.
It's okay. Which project? This class.
What team is up first? Are we going in numerical order?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
How you doing? See how you do it.
No, we do not have all of them.
I guess so. Team sounds like bring on sound.
You can't. You can't do it. Yeah, he feels like as long as
Okay, got 1 minute before we get started.
I can see do that.
What?
I've been going crazy.
Is this your last birthday?
Yes. I can't wait.
I don't need it. This is different for me.
No, it's not. Just has a cover. Just whatever you're using.
Hey, Connor, what do you
That gives us a minute to pass these out.
Okay, group one ready?
We're waiting on.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
These are extras too.
okay, while they're finishing up, take a look at the back board here real quick, just so that we want to keep everything on schedule. So once again, the presentations can be absolutely no longer than 20 minutes. 20 minutes are going to be completely cut off, regardless of where you are in your presentation. I would suggest that you keep it to 15 minutes, okay? But 20 minutes at absolute maximum. Q&A, 20 minutes as well, but preferably 15. Somewhere, hopefully, we'll develop a little bit of slack time in the middle of this, and we'll be able to take maybe a quick break. But if not, well, we'll just keep going, okay? We've got a limited time frame here. We've got to be done by noon, all right? So, group one, you guys ready? Okay.
What do you want me to do? Go to view.
Okay, so we're not using over here, right?
Yeah, I guess so. You didn't give us any.
All right, welcome to everyone for the final presentations for the real estate development process. We've got obviously 6 presentations to go through. I'd like to welcome our panel of judges. We have Chris Murphy down here on the end with Asset Management Partners. We have Gloria Fernandez with HB Capital. We have Tony Trello with the Morant Company. We have Eric Swanson with Avison Young, and Kona Gray with EDSA. And Thomas Wertzer, I guess, is running late. Okay, with that.
He's not by the office, he's here.
Oh, he is here. Okay, great. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I don't want to delay this any longer. All right?
All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We are Emma Development Group. My name is Erin Ladd.
I'm Michael Oshman.
I'm Maylee Vieira Porter.
I'm Angelo Palladino.
So today our agenda, we're going to be going through our development plan. That's going to break down all of these items here. Financial analysis, our development timeline. We're going to briefly go through our team backgrounds, tools used, and then we'll wrap up for any questions.
Thank you, Erin. So the site for our development is in downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's in the Flagler Village neighborhood, and it's a trendy neighborhood that has grown significantly in the last 5 years and is a former warehouse district. So the specific site is an assemblage of 2 lots, the north lot and the south lot. It's a total of 1.33 acres. They're normal rectangular lots, equal in size, and the location is very good. It's only a few blocks away from the central business district and Las Olas, which is the center of downtown. It's also next to an opportunity zone, which incentivizes development and should help drive growth in the area. So the condition of the land is suitable for development. There's no history of contamination. There's no history of contaminations or irregularities. Utilities are readily available. The land is flat with a slight slope, so drainage is sufficient, and the bearing capacity supports foundations for high-rise development.
Alright, so as far as the zoning for this district, there's in the Regional Activity Center, City Center District that allows a very wide variety of high-density options with a future land use designation of Downtown Regional Activity Center. For the setbacks, they're very sufficient. The side and rear setbacks are 5 feet. The front setback is 10 feet. However, in the Downtown Master Plan Design Guidelines, there's a 60-foot right-of-way width. So there's only a 40-foot existing, so we'd have to either dedicate or provide a 10-foot easement. So with that, I designed the building with a 20-foot setback. Now, we did run into an issue. There was a little hiccup. We initially proposed a pet boarding facility under the assumption that mixed use was an umbrella term for a wide variety of allowable and conditional uses, as we usually see in many other municipalities. However, it was determined that pet boarding is not an allowed use. So we looked at several options, including rezoning, but again, rezoning was not feasible because we were going to go to B3, but that would be spot zoning. It would require an additional trip to the City Council and Planning and Zoning Board, and additionally, the property is right in front of a condo association. The property to the north is a condo association. You don't want them coming out and speaking their mind on pet boarding facilities. So towards the end, we'll discuss some other options we looked at. So for proposed uses, it's going to be 154 dwelling units on the south tower. It's going to be 24 stories with a parking structure on the north tower. It's going to be connected by a skywalk, which will require an additional permit through the county. There's 45 tandem valet parking spaces, so then the residents don't have to walk across the street or use the skywalk. We have a little roundabout for the valet. And that also allowed us to get additional parking spaces because you could park them tandem back to back. As well as an enclosed doggy park, which is a private civic facility. It is an allowed use, as well as a brewery, retail, and office. So Amelie's going to walk us through the marketing office system.
Hello. So as you know, development is on the rise. Fort Lauderdale was ranked #1 as the most popular city to relocate to. In our area, we're seeing Metro renters. Metro renters occupy 80% of all of the households nearby. The median household income is $80,000. And not only do they enjoy socializing, but they enjoy beer, wine, and they like to be in a place where they can gather. And within a 3-mile radius of our location, we saw a population of 140,000 people. So what else did we find? We found an analysis that shows that there is a strong growth in 55 plus. The Broward County Housing and Population Model shows that the dominant age segment is between 45 to 64 years old between 2015 through 2030. From there, the dominant age segment is 65 years plus. So what did we see? We also saw that 60% of downtowners have a pet. They spent approximately in 2019 $8 million with a projection of $10 million by 2024. In terms of apartment rentals, we saw an average growth of an average occupancy of 95%, and in our submarket, we saw an increase of rents of 5.1%, promising a strong rental market for the years to come. So overall, what we saw was that in order for retail to be able to survive in the projected downturn, the landlords have to create an experience. The landlords have to bring the foot traffic to the site and create a place where many are going to gather. We saw an exponential growth for experience-related services, and we also saw that there was 4 times the growth in terms of what we saw in actual just goods sold alone. 78% of adults would consider living in a mixed-use developments, which we thought was exponential because they like for all of the amenities to be combined and the convenience of being able to access them all. In terms of what we're seeing in the retail trends, retail itself, near our particular area, we saw a negative absorption, predominantly for what was actually entering our market. But Broward County as a whole saw a 4.1% vacancy ratio alone, and retail trends were trending upwards. Nearby our site, the predominant tenants were service providers. In terms of office trends, at the end of Q2, Broward County saw a pretty stable market, and we saw the biggest or the lowest unemployment rate at 3%, which was the biggest that Broward County had seen. Predominantly the professional and business service sectors were the ones that were growing. New construction in terms of the rental apartments, we saw a huge increase of that. And we compared between what was a new construction, what was entering the market, and what had been redeveloped. And we also compared it to some 55+ communities as well. What we saw was that the basic models were ranging at about $220 a foot, which was giving us an average rent of $22.89. We saw some new projects coming to market, which would project the occupancy rates to decrease a little bit because vacancy rates were going to increase as the market absorbed it. But overall, we did see a promising market. So who are we after? We are after the active 55 seeking an active and dynamic lifestyle while incorporating the many amenities that we offer. Those are the baby boomers, those are the Generation X. What we found in the Broward population model was that baby boomers are going to trend towards smaller homes, and they're really going to drive the market demand for what's entering our market, and really it's going to drive development and redevelopment. We saw that retirees are the ones who are going to be creating the demand for the years to come for Broward. So in our 55 on the rise, we are creating mixed-use auxiliary amenities and bringing it all together to satisfy the needs.
So here's some of the renderings I put together. We will have a little glass enclosed atrium for the dog park, as well as private access with a membership card. We have the brewery in here, as well as the elevator that goes all the way up to the parking deck. An enclosed patio with the brewery, as well as a 1,200 square foot retail bay, as well as access up to the parking garage. And then we'd also like to add some public art in Flagler Village. That is a hot item right now. There's actually public funds available for the public art, so there would absolutely be a public art installation. So these are the tower, the 55 on the rise tower right here. This is facing east, south, and west, and you can see the skywalk right there. And now Angela's going to run us through the financial analysis.
All right, so let's see if, my job's, to say if it works or not, right? Can we do it? If you will, we went through some value engineering and a few changes this week to try and really drill down, see if we could find some way to make the project work. Long story short, unfortunately we couldn't, but if you'll turn in what we handed out to you there, towards the back, there's new tables that reflect those changes. Anyways, so I'm going to run through this. Our total all-in cost is around $126 million. We were betting on $350 a square foot. We're looking at $15,000 per parking space. That was part of the value engineering. Instead of doing gross buildable, per square foot at doing the $350, we tried to do a flat $15,000 in the parking. That helped a lot, about $40 million, but didn't quite get us there. We assumed 30% of total operating expenses. So the next part, we'll run through the NOI. At stabilization, we're looking at about $6.5 million. The lease-up period goes out until about the end of year 5, pre-leasing at around 20%, and then past that, it'll be leased up within 12 months. So, as I said earlier, the front door and the back door test, we failed both. We missed the front door by $8 a square foot in rent for what we needed to be able to make it feasible. And for the back door, we were over in project cost by $28 million for it to be feasible. Okay, so this is the partner structure. This is also, again, I'm going to run through this quickly, but it is reflected in the tables that we provided. So we had an IRR overall of 13.4 and a net present value of $71.5 million. Okay, so observations. How do you fail the front door and back door test yet still come out with a positive IRR? Reversion. We assumed a 5.75 cap rate on reversion at the end of year 10. That's how that happens. The other thing in the model, as you'll notice, is there's 10% of a preferred return. That, because there's negative cash flows in the initial phase 1, it did not shelter it. So that negative got distributed as well. All right.
So based on these recommendations, one of the big issues we ran into was the $350 per square foot construction cost. That was recommended to us by our mentor, Mark Peterson, who is brilliant with the financing aspects. So we recommend holding the property. Wait until the market dies down a little bit. Wait until the construction costs start getting competitive again. It's really just, we literally did everything we could to analyze this and try to make this project work, but the construction costs right now just simply do not make sense. So also with the dog hotel, we looked at alternative uses. We looked at maybe doing a self-storage facility. It has the same breakdown and it actually would have a better cash flow in the end run. They have the same square footage footprint as the little doggy hotel unit, but that is something that we will analyze once construction costs get competitive once again. So we can, in the meantime, proceed with entitlements, and a development agreement, those usually last around 2 years, and by the end of that, luckily, the construction costs will go down a little bit as all these brand new units come online and construction workers are looking for their next thing to do. So our team, Angela, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Background, I'm from Arkansas. Been down here about 1.5 years. I'm trying to work into the industry in this program. Erin?
My name is Erin Ladd. I'm an urban planner at Keith. My background involves large-scale land entitlements.
I'm Maylee Vieira Porter. I'm a commercial real estate broker and an aspiring developer.
I'm Michael Oshman. I'm from New York, and I am an analyst at a developer in Fort Lauderdale. And thank you all for being with us this morning.
Thank you to Fred and Mark. Super helpful. One of the best. They made this program worth it all. So thank you so much for coming in on Saturday mornings and helping us out with our thousands of questions. It was incredible. And then the next slide. Any questions?
Judges?
First of all, it's major league suck up, but I agree that Mark Peterson is really I have a couple of quick questions. One, was your recommendation not to go forward, was that in the book and I missed it?
It was right before we turned in our report, we realized that the dog kennel was not allowed. So we scrambled to look at lots of different options, and this happens frequently in the development process. I've seen people get all the way to city council, not with my projects, but with other projects, only for city council to deny it. So this was something that we didn't sweat over it, but it happens. It's part of the real estate development process, unfortunately.
But financially, you have marked it as a no.
Yeah, as a no,
Yes.
it should have failed the front and back door test, just to proceed forward. And with taking out the dog kennel, that took out about $500,000 in NOI. So that fell short. You know, we couldn't make up that NOI.
Okay, and then one other question, and I'll proceed to the other judges, but in the book, it looks like you were incorporating about 15% equity. I was a little confused by the financials. Did you have a 90% loan to cost?
So that's a byproduct of there being 2 loans in what we tried to do. What we tried to do was a little ambitious. I tried to build in both the constructionary period as well as stabilization loans into the same IRR calculation. Bit more than what I could chew, honestly. But what we found is, if you'll flip into the book that we just handed out, the perm loan is 90-10, okay? Based on
permanent loan is 90-10.
Yeah, the 90-10, the takeout of the construction. The construction is 65% loan to cost, so we have to come up with 35% on that.
So your equity going into the deal is 35%?
Yes, plus the value of the land, because we're actually bringing them in as a partner.
Okay, I don't think that was that clear in the book. That's,
I appreciate the feedback. And hopefully in what we handed out as an update, you'll find it reflected better there.
yeah. Fred, how are we supposed to, how are we supposed to deal with handouts today?
Ignore them.
Okay.
What's the answer?
Ignore them.
So I have 1 or 2 questions, if I may go first. Yeah. Before you go. Oh, no, I'm kind of the house guy, so guest first.
Okay. So the presentation showed the need for 55 plus housing, and it showed that a brewery is consistent with the neighborhood. But did any of the presentations show that the brewery is right for the 55+ housing?
The 55+ housing, it integrates the community and it brings a better sense of belonging in the overall neighborhood. The Whitney is right behind our project, which is several thousands of units with the Pearl integrated into that. Those are the metro renters. So with those aspects, we're looking at more of accessory uses for the overall Flagler Village neighborhood, and that is why we came up with the brewery. It just seemed to it will integrate much better with the overall demographics of that neighborhood overall.
Okay, so not necessarily with your 55+, but with the community as a whole.
It complemented, yes, the community as a whole, based on what we saw trending, that metro renters in that target, in that segment, they did drink pretty substantially from the analysis. So, and then the dog park complemented to tie in the 55 folks because they were seen to have a lot of pets as well, and just overall downtown had a lot of pets.
So the only other question I had, so you mentioned in the project, you mentioned the opportunity zone.
Yes.
I didn't hear you mention, so block north is the CRA boundary. So would your project have worked if it was on a different site, one block north with some CRA funding?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm doing projects with the CRA right now. We are putting just about in their public record, so I feel comfortable talking about it. We're putting in the same types of mixed-use multifamily geared towards the metro renter age group. So the CRA, it's getting developed pretty rapidly right now.
I want to add to what Chris's line of thought here. Your cover page is an over 55 community, but when I looked at the project, I have to say I have to give you an A for effort on creativity, but I question the compatibility of the uses. I'm not sure an over 55 community necessarily wants a very active liquor type food and beverage establishment right at their doorstep. The dog park, again, that could be barking dogs, residents. You also mentioned an atrium. Is that an air-conditioned atrium? That's very expensive to maintain. Is that a third-party operator who's going to come in? That wasn't mentioned on the presentation or on the book. So, and you also had, I think, 9,000 feet of office, which wasn't mentioned in the presentation, but I really question why you put that in. I mean, why bother 9,000 feet?
Well, the reason why we thought having the 9,000 of office spaces there, we could create a complement to satisfy the need of the 55 residents. So some of the tenants that we were gearing towards was insurance agent, a travel agency, because a lot of the 55 folks are going to travel. Having some holistic component of holistic medicine as well, because we saw that there was a need for that in our immediate market. So we thought it would offer those types of spaces that would complement the need of the 55 resident. It would then flow very well because it would be an added amenity for them to use and on-site.
Okay.
That was the reason behind it.
But you don't detail that in your report. That's what you wrote down. Like what about a concierge doctor or physical therapy? Something like if you have a very active age group that has certain physical issues maybe to encounter, or just simply twist your ankle or your morning jog or walk, why again a brewery? Breweries are so overrated now. They're done.
Understandable, and of course that is, we would model it as in space, and then typically through the entitlements you get it approved as an office retail, and then you start dealing with the tenants. Obviously during the entitlement phase you go out and try to find the tenants, but in the meantime we're just looking at the bays and the uses, and these are suggested tenants.
And not only that, we did highlight the fact that 55 and over would probably need an optometrist and eyewear. We do select that in our file as well, and we did gear more towards some of the entertainment that they may seek, such as the gaming that's very popular online. We did mention that in our report as well.
And this is not an ALF, this is not a skilled nursing facility, this is for active 55 plus adults. We're going to gear it towards, and in the report we discussed the COPA guidelines.
Correct.
And the credits we can get with that. We're seeing people living longer. 55 plus, you're practically middle-aged at this point. You're no longer a senior citizen.
Correct.
People are living much longer.
Yeah, and then and we're seeing the trends of a lot more health conscientious organic lifestyle and whatnot is probably where we're seeing this population be mostly geared to that 45, 64, and we're seeing that growth substantially more here in Broward County. There's a reason for that. And I don't know that everybody's gonna need the memory care. I feel like the active seniors are being forgotten, and they need a place where they can gather as well and have some amenities.
The empty nesters coming in from out west, they wanna live downtown.
When just another comment on the brewery, we learned through our due diligence that when Fat City wasn't coming online, we wanted to capture, because we really walked the site a lot. And as far as like within walking distance, there didn't seem to be any kind of ground level retail. Like there's some gyms at the Whitney, but we wanted to capture that traffic and give ourselves kind of a synergy for the surrounding neighborhood to pull them in.
Foot traffic.
I'll jump in. Oh, Coney, you want to go? Go ahead. Just in no particular order, one of the things we're trying to do here in this program is give you as much exposure to what the rest of the world, your life is going to be like. You're going to look at way more projects and reject them than the ones that you can accept. And so I saw a very positive thing with your group in that you got to almost the go, no-go line, and you said, oh my God, this would be a disaster if we go forward. And to me, that's as good as finding a project that works, because I feel comfortable. You're going to go out into the world and you understand that you can't make every project work. So that was good. This is for all the teams. You must have a one-page summary up front of exactly what this project is, the hard numbers, what the mission is, and so forth. We're telling you, you won't get past the lender's door. You won't even get into the door if you submit a book that doesn't tell the whole story on the first page or two. Because they're not going to go through all the analysis to get to what the recommendation is. You have to do that up front. So, I don't think
I think a flaw in all of the packages was tons of information, but there wasn't anything up front to grab your attention and say, this is the mission and this is the project.
yeah, exactly. You're saying the same thing I am.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For such a new but exciting concept of this dog hotel, and I've got to stay with that, guys, even though you dropped it. I don't think there was enough market research on that. Did anybody else ever do this? Did they do it in Fort Lauderdale? Did they do it in Miami? Or is it just going to be the first of the first dog hotel?
Well, we pulled dog resorts that were nearby, just there was nothing in that particular vicinity, and we do have a chart itemizing that in the report. But to answer your question as to whether it was in an actual development,
Yeah.
I couldn't find it.
Did you think about when you hit the wall of backing off a rental and go to a condo?
Condo associations are very difficult, and those usually wind up in lawsuits before you even hit.
That might not be a good reason not to do the investment.
Okay, correct, you're right, that's a good
Okay.
point.
We were concerned, I did think about that, and I was concerned about the reselling aspect of it, about how many are rentals, how many are sales, and if you may run into a bind in that. And we didn't have, I don't think we had enough information to really make that determination, but that was my biggest concern.
That's a good point, good. If you were in your job somewhere and you weren't under the Dr. Fogey's gun,
Yes.
you might have time to then go do some study like that.
Right.
But, okay, the other thing is, and I think Eric hit on this, the position of the investor wasn't really clear. And particularly what's in it for the investor. What's the risk for the investor? What's the return for the investor? When is it going to happen? So there wasn't really, I think, a very distinctive breakout of the investor, who is, at this stage, is the most important person in the world. All right, so I'm going to let it go with that because of time, but very well done.
So as a designer on the panel, I was a little underwhelmed, frankly. I was looking for a lot more kind of, wow, that's great. And I'm sure it's not in your wheelhouse, and I get it. But at the same time, sometimes you got to stretch a little bit. Use images, use something as a reference of what you're trying to create. You can't physically draw what you're trying to draw. The other thing that kind of lost me was the whole 55 plus thing. You in the beginning, you said 55 plus and Gen X. I was like, all right, this could be a really interesting thing where you're mixing these two demographics. They work very well together. Then you drop the Gen X. I didn't get that. Can you explain why you didn't think that target market was going to work?
Just based on what we were seeing entering the market.
Gut feeling?
It was mostly a gut feeling, yes. Excuse me, that was predominantly the reason. We did discuss it, but we just felt there was gonna be more of the demand in that 45 to 64, at least for us.
Well, and the immense amount of units that are coming online very shortly in the area, they're not, we felt like if it was going to work, we would have to find a niche to play in. And because there's so much coming online right now in the immediate area.
In your opinion, does it cater to that market or does it cater to another market? Because I feel a little left out. I'm a Gen Xer.
Oh.
There really isn't anything on the market right now, in my opinion, that really, hits that demographic.
Right, and that's the whole point of the 55 plus. We would have the amenities in there, and Mila can expand more about the amenities that office and retail spaces in that building would offer. But that's the point of the brewery and the dog park, was to integrate the surrounding neighborhood, which is mostly millennials and metro renters. And that's why we wanted a special building just for Generation X and the baby boomers.
Let me, I left out the most important thing I wanted to say. I live now in the biggest 55 plus community in the world. I moved to a place called the Villages.
Okay.
Okay, there's 130,000 people there now. And it was the shock of my life how wild these people are.
We've heard your research.
There are 3 world of beers. There are 6 brewery restaurants. They go, and they not only go at night, they start before lunch. And so
There's nothing wrong with that.
there is a whole, when the country established the 55 rule, which is about 40 years ago, we didn't have such long expectations of life and so forth. I can tell you, my wife and I are the oldest people on our street, and yet I feel real young.
You are. Don't bring MA into this.
No, but I'm just saying is that it does. Knowing what I know now, this concept doesn't scare me at all. The people are out there. I lost 3 neighbors here that moved downtown into rentals, downtown Fort Lauderdale, and they were over 55. I think it's got great vision.
Thank you.
One quick question, just a quick question. You're showing 154 units, which is not such a big project. Did that affect your thinking on the exit cap rate?
Yeah, so the exit cap rate, basically what we did is we used Vista, and we knew, okay, we had gotten the research for 30% on the operational cost. We just used an implied cap rate on the sales of similar units, right? With it only being 154, we really didn't want to base it on a per door basis. So we really shot for that NOI and tried to find other income to boost the valuation for the exit.
Could you increase the numbers?
That was something we discussed
Yes.
frequently. We really wanted to get the office space and as an amenity component to the 55 plus community. We were looking at lawyers' offices, doctors' offices, optometry, things that would cater towards them, and we felt that that was going to be a much more, because most of the apartment communities we see don't have a ton. They have, maybe tops 25, 3,000 square feet of office space in the buildings.
Yeah, it's interesting to bring that up because we're working with the RIP related right now. Mixed use is great, but in many cases those spaces don't go. So their thought is more units, smaller units, maximize.
And that's for younger people.
That's for younger people.
Yes, we didn't want to lose out on the generation. Yeah, if we were playing for millennials, then I would have done 400 square feet with a foldable bed then.
Yeah.
And charged
And then
them
what we
$2,000.
saw, a lot of the 55 and older that are thinking now of downsizing, they're going from 2,500 square feet plus. If you put them in a 800 square foot unit, I'm not sure that there would be jumping on their feet for them.
And we did have some 800, like, we did keep a pretty good variety. We had anywhere from 800 to the top, I believe, was no more than 2,000 square feet, but we only put a couple of the 2,000 square feet units in. We really tried to put a good mix in.
I can't speak for the judges, but I know we're running out of time.
Okay, that's fine.
I just want to say one other thing, at least for myself, that it's very obvious to me, the way I looked at it, that you guys put a lot of time into this. And you took it very, very serious. And I think you have to pat yourself on the back for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
One more question.
One more question. Okay, can I have 5 questions, please? Let's summarize your report. I think it's one of the best reports I created in this cohort. The layout was outstanding. There was evidence that someone spent almost a week on just putting this document together, versus, oh, deadline is at 5 o'clock and it's noon and we have to get things together. I have a few comments. I'm happy to share that later. Too many uses to predict potential outcomes. That's my summary on your development strategy. The dog thing is nice. I can't recall if you actually did expenditures for dogs, like you mentioned here. Actually, in the write-up, using, let's say, business data to pull this in.
Yes.
We build that into the to the 30%.
In terms of time. Yeah. If you guys do a project like this, don't even touch job creation with location quotients from some outside source. That's just, sorry for the French word, it's just BS. Yeah? You're talking about one building in downtown Fort Lauderdale and you're using regional data for Broward County in comparison. And you didn't use it, as in this is the tranches we want to go or industries we want to support. That's pretty much it in terms of time. Last one thing, that logo got decommissioned more than a year ago. And you used the athletic symbol with the shark, the old one, as well on your prints and the ads. So it's a small detail for hiccups. But I think overall, well done. A summer well spent, and you see the time and the dedication put into that document and the presentation. So I'll applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, group 2.
Brad, do you want the scorecards now?
If you have them, I will take them. Go ahead and score what you can.
Possession of 19
It's the same string that you drag it over. The dual string. Doesn't have these strings that you just drag it over. Okay, we've got 1 minute to get started.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to say thank you all for taking time out on a busy Saturday where you could be doing whatever you want to do to listen to our proposal. We're very excited to be here, and we hope you enjoy what we have to share with you. We are the porters at Flagler. Let me introduce you to our vertically integrated team. This is Brian D'Souza, He's gonna be in charge of regulatory. This is Anthony Alisenko. He's in charge of site design and design overall. And this is Jeff Hurd. He's our financial analysis, and he is also the numbers guy. I'm Austin Volk. I always forget to introduce myself because my team is way more important than I am. And I'll be in charge of the market analysis part. Okay. What you noticed in the United States as a whole is that the way that people are living has changed. People are more so sharing homes because of what you see on the screen today. The red line that's going up is actually the cost of housing. The line that's maintained stagnant is actually the income that the common individual makes. That's the problem. What this actually shows is that there's a great need for affordable housing in not just South Florida, but in the United States as well. How can this need be met? This need can be met through a product called co-living. Co-living is not a fairly new concept, but we're going to give you, because it has a new face, actually it just has a new face today, but it's a product that we're all very familiar with. Here's a little clip to let you know what it looks like in today's world. More, you can access during the question and answer time. But now that you see how co-living is actually being represented in today's world, how does it benefit everyone? It benefits cities because now cities can take the additional revenue and it increases their sales taxes that they can make in any given area. It also benefits owners and developers because owners and developers now can make more money because, as you'll see later on, they can really charge more per square foot. Now, you may ask yourself, can we do co-living in Fort Lauderdale? Is the zoning even allow that to happen? Brian D'Souza is going to explain how that works in Fort Lauderdale.
Thank you, Oz. Hello, everyone. Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian. Let's move our regulatory analysis. Okay, so as you can see to the right, this is going to be the zoning map of the city of Fort Lauderdale, followed by the zoomed in on the proposed site located off of Northeast 3rd Avenue and Northeast 3rd Street in Flagler Village. The proposed site is located in what's called RAC-CC, which is the Regional Activity City Center, which is the city of Fort Lauderdale's high-intensity downtown zoning district, which enables higher density for Fort Lauderdale's live, work, play environment that they're trying to achieve. It is important to note that currently that the RAC-CC zone does not have any height restrictions, but there is an FAA 175 feet height recommendation, but again, it is not a requirement due to the close proximity of the Fort Lauderdale Airport. Based on the close proximity of the site, those surrounding buildings are approximately 30 stories, which is approximately 300 feet, so we decided to do that with our project as well. Amongst the various permitted and conditional uses of the site, we decided to go with multifamily. We were allowed a maximum of 1,300 dwelling units. Additionally, we offer office space for the residents at no additional cost, and storage is available for additional cost on top of their monthly rent. In regards to the first story, 5,000 square feet of commercial space, we are trying to target a retail tenant, but if that falls through, we will accept the restaurant and bar per the permitted uses. Next, I'm going to pass it over to Anthony. He's going to go over the site analysis and design for the proposed site.
So
Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Anthony. So the key thing that we looked at was this is an area that is targeting a live, work, play environment as per the Fort Lauderdale design guidelines. So we looked at making sure that this was definitely a walkable area for the type of user of the space. So we found that it was a 93 score, walk score, a 61 for transit, and a 61 for bikeability. We are super close to downtown. We are a 1-minute car ride away, a 6-minute bus ride away, a 2-minute bike ride away, or a 10-minute walk. We also looked at the major arteries for the area for, again, the commuters. There is plenty of bus lines nearby, and parks are all located within a walking distance. We also took into account the solar analysis of the site to be able to make sure we're maximizing the amount of natural light coming into the space. This is a view of the existing site that we are developing. We are only developing the south lot. And this is the proposed sketch for the site design. We followed the design guidelines for the city of Fort Lauderdale, and we mitigated all of the trees on site by replanting them along the sides of the proposed building, so that way we are incorporating mature growth. We also have a turf roof to help reduce the cost for the water and maintenance. We also looked into the overall design of the building. So I created an actual tower in Revit, and so for the first floor we have the community pool, followed by the leasing office, the lobby, and then the retail bay, as well as parking on the first level. And on the second level and third level, we have the parking spaces and the storage facilities. Then we come up to our upper podium levels, where we have our products, where we have our studios, 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, as well as the community space, as well as again, on the tower floors, those same products, but more of an intimate feel. This is a rendering of our building as proposed, and also a view of our lobby. Thank you very much, and I'm going to pass it on to Jeff.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to go over a brief financial, I'll go over the background of the financial analysis, but before I do, I want to give some context and go over some key fundamentals of the site. We have a 1.33 acre site, which is just under 60,000 square feet. We have 447,000 gross square footage on the site, and this equates to 239,000 of rentable apartment square feet. The site's being offered for approximately $12 million, and based on our market study, we found that approximately 5,000 units are going to be online and coming online by year 2022. Further looking at the space allocation and rental rates for this competitive set, we have come up with creative ways to maximize our potential gross income and to realize escalated rental rates. So that leads us into our unit and amenity mix. And I'd like you to take note of our traditional 309 units. But with our co-living formula, this equates to 655 keys, or individual units, or beds, if you will. This was the secret sauce of our so-called project. With rental rates of our most popular unit of $4.38, it delivers 11.5 million potential gross income. This combined with our auxiliary income of roughly $1 million gives us a final PGI, or potential gross income, of $12.6 million. So here we have a density-driven project engineered to maximize revenue, reduce absorption time periods, and increase our penetration rate into the Flagler market that is just absorbed in supply coming online. Next is our year 1 lease up. And it's a busy spreadsheet, but I simply want to illustrate our lease up through stabilization period. We're looking to rent 8% of the units, or 55 units in the first month, which gives us our stabilization at year 1, which was really key. Market research showed that absorption is up to 2 years in this area, 18 months to 2 years. So we're looking to bring that down to about a year, which is going to increase our penetration into the market and really help out our financials. If you'll take note, in our first year we get a $4.7 million NOI. This takes us into our 5-year pro forma. Again, the 7.6 million potential gross revenue, equating to the 4.6 million NOI. It stabilizes at year 2, and with an annual growth rate of 2%, we're already up to 12 million and headed towards 13.5 million by year 5. So what does all this mean? Well, with an initial cash outlay of $120 million, we projected that at roughly $250 a square foot on construction costs to deliver a high-end project. With our revenues in year 1 through 5 of approximately $8 million and a resale value of $156 million, we're looking at a 10.9% internal rate of return, and that is unleveraged. That leaves us with a $4.6 million net present value, which is above 0, which we found this is a viable project with this model. Furthermore, looking at it with a leverage return, initial outlay of $30 million, before tax cash flows of roughly $4.5 million, and a value at the end of the term, $80 million, we actually have an internal rate of return of 28.22%. This equates to a $30 million net present value, and so it's highly profitable. We feel like our co-living model delivered a highly profitable model when leveraged with debt. And next I'm going to turn it over to Oz with the market analysis.
Hello again. The primary market area consists of 70 to 80% of the overall area that's being studied. We identified our primary market area as a census tract 425. What's highlighted in black is going to be, that's the Flagler Village area. The star is where the actual site, the proposed site is located. Flagler Village is very unique in itself, so we wanted to identify it from the rest of downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's a trendy type place, very artsy. Now this is a flow chart that discusses the absorption going in the area, what's under review, and these numbers actually led us to saying that we were only going to develop on the north lot, on the south lot, because there's so much going on currently. And it has been for about the last 10 years, since they started redoing the Flagler Village area. You have 774 units that were absorbed in 12 months. This is per Marcus Millichamp, the custom report that was done for us by our mentor who's not here. Thank you, Gene. And also data that was compiled from the City of Fort Lauderdale Planning Department. You have 774 units. You have 19,000 units that were delivered since 2012. There's 4,600 units under construction currently in the area. You have 2,000 that's in review and 5,000 units that's approved that's going to flow into construction, which is going to flow into absorption. This is how the team actually came up with co-living, because all of these units currently are traditional multifamily units. None of these units, except for one, X on Marsolis, that is currently under construction, is a co-living product. X is geared towards a different type of consumer, like then you'll see a little bit later on, a different type of consumer than we're targeting, but so we would be the only co-living facility in Flagler Village. Our absorption strategy to have our lease-up times occur actually quicker with all the inventory that's in the pipeline is that we identified 3 different segments, metro renters, trendsetters, and laptops and lattes, that in this census tract 425, you have 65% of the population that lives there. They have the same characteristics of a person who would live in a co-living facility. They like to live in city dwellings. Laptops and lattes is obvious. They're technologically enhanced or like technology. And most of them either live by themselves or they have roommates. So this is our concentrated market area. Our idea is to grab the whole 65%, which would help us lease up our product faster and not really concern ourselves with the absorption as much because we are offering a different product, and that's our differentiation strategy. This is just an analysis to show what is actually needed in the area. It shows that the gross income of a worker before they even pay taxes in this area is $54,000. The average rent, which was compiled by taking averages from the 8 closest properties to site location, comes out to almost $19,000. That's becomes over 35% of their earnings that's being spent on rent. It becomes very unaffordable, and I also believe, or the team believes, it will lead to a higher rate of default. Hence, having a co-living product would work towards the affordability of the overall area. Here's an analysis of what a traditional unit, what someone would make up of a traditional unit, actually renting for about $2 or $2.2, and the size of it, and compared to a co-living unit, which is renting for $4.38 a square foot. When you go through that for both the 2.2, the 3.2, and the 3.3, you see that co-living actually is more beneficial for the owner, developer, and because it brings affordability to the market, it's beneficial to the cities that these type of products are located. So, in differentiating ourselves, we also wanted to mitigate risk. So we found there's like 6 or 7 different co-living operators currently in the United States operating in different areas. We identified all 6, contacted them, and actually spoke with one named Common. Common is partners with developers, but they also manage and have management agreements with facilities. Common's development aspect is called Common Strategic Capital, and they gave us some basic terms on what their management agreement would look like. They were thinking 5 to 10 years with a 3 to 10% fee, depending upon the product that it is that they're managing.
2 minutes.
Well, now we've actually explained to you through the regulatory site analysis and the financial feasibility and marketing how the porters at Flagler can actually work not just for owners operators but also for developers and a community as a whole. Any questions?
I think one of the things that it's a small point you touched on in the written project, but you also mentioned it here, is that you guys reached out to different co-living companies, and I think that's so important because you only have the student status for so long, but this being a student allows you to call up anybody in the development world and say, I'm a student and I need your advice on this. It gives you great access, and I thought that's something you guys did a good job taking advantage of. The second thing was a question. It seems like on the first couple floors of the project, you had some very large common areas. How do you guys look at that or examine that in terms of, is that the best use of space? Is that maximizing our returns? Is it a necessary amenity to have it be that large? How did the thought process work on that?
We didn't go through the whole co-living video. What goes on that you will see is that the co-living idea is not, it's like to share, it's like a community. So instead of everyone having a separate unit, you go and you eat dinner and you commune and engage with the people around you. Because what we found in the 3 subtypes of, in the market analysis is that those people like to socialize. Their social lifestyle is very important to them. So we wanted to have community spaces so that they can do just that. And Anthony designed the bedrooms all along the exterior walls so that any noise that would occur in the social spaces, the people inside the members inside their units, they weren't really affected by that because their bedrooms were away from the center of where the community would be interacting.
I guess my question is on the upper floors, it seemed like the common areas were smaller, but on the first couple floors, the common areas were much larger.
So they are smaller on the upper floors because it's supposed to be more of an intimate community feeling. Also, we were maximizing the square footages for the units. So that way, again, everyone would be able to get, or we would be able to get a higher amount of unit density. On the lower floors, however, we have more community spaces because, again, we are trying to target that kind of live, work, play community. And a lot of these people are looking for a third place theory sort of environment. So not only are they coming home to lock their things into their bedrooms and, relax, they come out, they socialize, they're able to watch movies, lounge with their friends, play pool, do laundry, just hang out and explore Fort Lauderdale and make friends and community.
So it's just more of a product differentiation within the
Also, there's a higher setback on floors, any floors 8 through 30, so we had to design around that setback.
Thank you.
Let me start. You gonna go? You go on this way?
Okay, I had a couple comments. First of all, I think the concept is geared towards the market, so kudos for that. One of the things I thought was very important is that you mentioned a third-party operator, because you're developers, you're not necessarily managers, but the success of your project depends on having good management. So I thought that was important. A couple things. You mentioned development on only one lot, but during the presentation we failed to mention what was going on in the second lot.
Oh, let me address that right now. The second lot, because we felt that the market continuously needed to be assessed because of all the development that was going on. We wanted to do an 18 to 24 month option on the second lot instead of committing to 2 different projects at the same time, and then we don't know where the market is going.
Well, I think that's an important point to mention, because you're mitigating your risk that way by phasing your project. I wasn't clear from the presentation how this is going to be financed and what's in it for the investor. That wasn't clear to me in what was presented. I think that's it. Comments? Tony?
There was, I think, a lot of detailed discussion in the book about what to do with the second lot, and yet you didn't even, I don't think you touched on it in your presentation here. Are you buying it, or you're optioning it?
It's an 18 to 24 month option on the second lot, so we can reassess the marketplace.
And that was incorporated into your financials? The cost of that option, is it in the financial?
No, the financials reflect the purchase of one lot.
Okay, and is the assumption that you will not exercise the option, and that was just an additional capital expense of doing the deal? Or did you assume something positive was gonna happen way out in the future on lot number 2?
No, we want to keep our options open, so we're not committing to that second lot other than an option contract, but,
You remember how much you were paying for the option?
no, I did not incorporate that in.
So you didn't put a number in for the cost of the option?
No.
Okay, well, that's an important number, because, most times, maybe you do successfully exercise the option, and other times you walk away. But in a conservative analysis, you want to put it in and soon you walk away, because that's closer to reality.
Or, it could turn out we don't even engage with the option. That we do it in one lot and we let the.
But see, there's a cost associated with it, and you just can't ignore it. I mean,
we're taking an option.
For the seller to sell you lot A, you're telling him or her that I'm willing to pay you X number of dollars for you to stand still on this property and don't do anything with it. And I have 2 years to pull the trigger myself. That was covered in the book to some extent, but wasn't in your presentation. I think what Gloria said, who does the dishes?
There's a dishwasher for the dishes.
No, I mean, if there's all these people kumbayaing about having dinner together.
We actually, okay, so what co-living also does is that it removes all the headaches from having a roommate. So once a week, someone will come into your unit and clean. You actually don't pay for utilities. Utilities are included unless you're in a studio. So all the 3 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, utilities are included. Those are all ways that we differentiate
But there's
ourselves.
X number of units sharing a kitchen, right?
It's just like a 3 bedroom, 3 bath, 1 unit.
It's
They
like a
share
regular sized
one kitchen, that's it. Like a regular unit, like a 2 bedroom, 2, they share one kitchen. That's it.
They just each have their own lockable bedroom doors.
Yeah.
Tony, another good example is a company called Ollie.
Yeah, we call
Yeah,
them.
you might equate co-living, it's generally like a dormitory. It's modern era of a dormitory.
But if I'm going to lease a bedroom, in a sense, I'm leasing a bedroom, right? And deposit. Shouldn't I be paying less in total dollars that month than if I rented a conventional, normal, 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartment?
Absolutely.
You are paying
You
less.
are. Our rents are 30% below market.
You are paying, yes.
Okay, well, I saw $4 and change per square foot.
Because we're charging it per bedroom instead of the overall unit.
It's almost like a hotel mixed with multifamily, like a blended model.
We are realizing about $425, $450 a square foot, where the markets are around $250 a square foot. But that equates to, we're still at $250 a square foot.
The total dollars is cheaper.
Total dollars is cheaper. We're able to offer our studio at $1,500 and our
Studio is at $1,600, but sharing a unit, you're at $1,400 for a 3 bedroom, 3 bath. So you would have your 1 bedroom and bath, would be $1,400.
But real quick, I want to move on with the other thing. The rental storage space.
Yes.
That was in your numbers.
Yes, about $500,000.
And does everybody have the right to a storage? Are there enough storage rooms for every unit?
No. We looked at space allocation, we looked at our rental rates, we obviously don't want to self-storage underserving what we could realize on our apartments. But we also looked at the convenience and the fact that many people move into these units and immediately figure out where we're going to put my golf clubs. So
yeah, it's important. Yeah.
So we did built-in storage as a convenience factor, but it also is realizing a higher rent rate in our stores than any of our units. So it is quite profitable.
Okay, thank you very much.
Couple of thoughts. One, I thought co-living is a very creative and a plausible solution. So thank you for presenting that. I also, a couple of positive comments is that, as I recall, you guys are the only ones that refer to the FAA height restriction, which is important. I don't recall any of the other groups mentioning that in the written material.
There was one with a helicopter pad. There was one other team who referred to the helicopter pad in the chasing movements.
Okay.
So, two.
The couple of negative things. One is, in the written presentation and in this presentation, you really don't address cost at all. I think in the financial information in the book, there's one line item that says the cost of this thing is going to be over $1 million. Correct. But you don't tell us how you're going to get there. So I have no idea if that's the right number or the wrong number or anything about that. So I would encourage you to at least, I don't expect you to know everything for this, but you should at least explain how you got to that number. And this actually goes for the other groups as well. And because the first group did it, I let it go, but you did it too. You made an assumption around something that didn't work for you and said, well, it made our numbers look a lot better. So the first group said, well, we're going to change our parking costs from whatever it was down to 15,000 a space and made our numbers look great. Well, yeah, it's going to do that. It's going to have that impact, but I don't know that you can build it for 15,000 a parking space. In this one, the thing that you mentioned, I don't know how much you mean it, but you said our numbers looked a lot better when we absorbed in a year. And so we got 100% leased in a year. Well, as an investor, that's fine. That's the optimistic side of you, but you also need to look at the other things. So you can't just say, well, we got it in a year, so everything was great. You know, that's not the real world, right? You have to address that, is all I'm saying.
All our assumptions came from our market analysis and our market research and analysis. So we didn't assume anything. We did a very comprehensive market research and analysis and built that into our unit. You know, that created our unit mix, that created our auxiliary incomes.
So I think that a stronger way of saying that then is through our market analysis, because we're providing this creative, unique concept, then we believe we're going to be able to absorb this inside of a year, maybe less. But then have a backup statement that says, even if we're wrong and it takes another 6 months or another year, this is the financial impact.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that was a comment that I was, rolling around in my head is, what was your exit strategy? How are we going to, prove that you can get out of this thing, positive? Because it seems that, in this world, you don't want to hold projects like this too long. I am, just like the rest of our panel, very happy that you're talking about the shock that it hasn't really caught on as much as it should here. And there are some projects in Miami. Obviously, you talked about the X. So, all those precedents, the common product was to you the most resounding?
Yeah, so that product, when we were doing research, was the closest to what we were trying to create in terms of our market segment. They had a very similar tapestry market pinpoint, which I was going to discuss.
Yeah, they, in South Florida, ex-Miami, ex-Fort Lauderdale, and ex is doing something in Orlando. Those were the only concentrated and common managers of property in Miami. But other than that, and we found out later on that Common actually has something in the pipeline in Coconut Creek. That was towards the end, so we couldn't include it in our data. But it was very interesting because we actually researched all 7 of these companies and saw how they're like switching the whole real estate multifamily game, which was very interesting, into this co-living concept. So it was informative.
Well, definitely a disruptor. I'm just trying to fully understand and comprehend why it hasn't caught on. And I'm getting to a point because I think the reason why it still hasn't caught on is it seems like it's less, but it really it is more. okay, and you're not getting as much for your money. And I think the one thing I didn't see you talk more about, which I wish you did, was the experience of it. Because I Googled Ollie real quick, because I remember working with them. They are all about the experience. They are all about, it's not about what you get from this, but it's about the experience, that you have a richer life to live this way. So I would highly suggest you think about that a little bit more.
That was in our video, but I didn't want to run, it was a 3-minute video, so I didn't want to run it out, but it goes to the living experience of co-living, which I should have explained, but thank you very much.
Alright, this is what I call a bipolar product. I'm not joking about that. The report is completely opposite in the execution of what you guys delivered here in the presentation. Presentation was stellar, beautiful, thoughtful composed, visually appealing, darn sexy. Report, not so much. And I'm not talking about the numbers, I'm talking about the whole thing. I actually mentioned in my notes that I think the 5 years holding period might be rather aggressive. Would have been interesting to see you guys with a long-term and more conservative model, as in maybe you don't get the occupancy you want in the first year, maybe you will say, hey, it takes us 1.5 years to get maybe to 90%, and you just run this as a hotel with average rates. Would have been interesting as a second backup and saying, we went the ultra-conservative long-term solution, and those are our numbers. The zoning entitlement section, I think was nicely done. The fee schedule in that scope for that stage you guys are in, I think was very detailed, almost detailed enough. Again, the write-up is not as sexy as the presentation, but it's okay. So if you would implement all those graphics and maps you presented in market analysis and location, this would be wonderful. I wrote down bonus point for the presentation. What I was wondering is, you're proposing pretty much someone 35, 40 years old moving back into the dorms, which we might have hated during college times?
Not moving back into dorms, that's how people are actually living today. People are living with roommates. This is something that's being done.
It's a very expensive neighborhood, so it's very difficult for some people to be able to afford that neighborhood, but they love the amenities.
Okay, let's do a quick focus group. Who in here has lived with roommates? Who never had a roommate?
Yeah, right.
Never ever had a roommate, as in college times, dorm. I'll just say outside of the forced closure. Alright, fine, you got a market potentially.
Yeah. We use this.
So I think you're up to something. What you did not deliver is the sexiness factor on that experience part. Why would I want that? Yeah. Why am I moving from a condo in Weston now to downtown Fort Lauderdale, Flagler Village, and I'm having a different experience than moving into like an 1,800 square foot mini condo or whatever.
Yeah. In both situations, you have a roommate.
Yeah.
But this one, you have a lot more.
What I really like is your argument here with the 35.5% on what you pay for rental, for housing. That's a huge negative for upcoming generations because they're really tilting over. So,
Thomas, I might inject an answer to that.
Yeah.
Why would you do this? Because this is the only you can afford.
Yeah.
This is how bad this market is.
Yeah.
We're really trying to
It's one of the highest rent markets in the country now.
I keep telling in classes, hey, if you hit the 30, you need to consider something different, and they're presenting 35 and higher.
But they got to pay student debt yet first.
Yeah.
This is why
We could have gone longer, we would have gone into that and delayed
To make it
damage.
short, I love the presentation, the report needs some more TLC, and on little tiny details. Argus is one software company, Esri is the other one, they don't do shared products
I didn't know
based on
that.
the footnotes.
Okay.
I'm happy to share my notes, make comments later.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
I got one thing to say.
Yes.
Thank you for wearing South Florida business attire.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you, great.
I got one.
There's one thing I
I know.
We're starting
Just one question before they start. I just want to make sure on the written report, is pages 1 through 31 through 40 correct? There wasn't more than that, right? Okay, thanks.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kyle Tuthill. This is Brandon Bell. Will be going over our site analysis. Andrew Schneider, he's going over regulatory analysis. Alex Butcher is going over our market analysis. And lastly, Ryan Kaufman going over our financial analysis. We were tasked with running a multifamily feasibility analysis on two 29,000 square foot lots situated in Fort Lauderdale that are currently for sale for $15 million. The location of the lots are located north and south of 3rd Street, both one parcel west of 3rd Avenue, and 3 blocks north of Broward Boulevard. After a site market and regulatory analysis, we envisioned that the best possible use of the lots are 2 multifamily towers developed into 2 separate phases, which will contain micro units and shared apartments, several amenities, and small retail at the ground floors. In short, after conducting an extensive market research, running several scenarios, and doing a thorough financial analysis, we found that the development did not achieve the necessary return on investment for our group to recommend to outside investors. Now I'll hand over to Brandon to start our site analysis.
Okay, so the first part of the site analysis for our feasibility process was to do the due diligence on the site. We wanted to make sure that the site encompassed the wants and needs of the community before we proposed anything at all. So when we got our boots on the ground at the site, the first thing we noticed was these 2 residential towers right here next to the north parcel. And from here it looks all right, but when you get there, those balconies are already so congested and pointing at each other, there's no privacy. And if you put up another tower right here, not only do you not have any views to your north or your west, but it's also, you're also looking straight into somebody's living room and vice versa. Now, one of the original thoughts we'd have would be to build a sky bridge connecting the parcels, but when we got down to the site, we noticed one detriment was that the street was so narrow that it's not even needed. Now, over here is the Brightline Virgin Station. This will come at hand later. So here's the north parcel down on the ground. And here is the south parcel. Now, the walkability from the site, there are 3 main points of interest. One being the Virgin Brightline train station right there. And that will take you to West Palm or Miami, and that's probably one of the best parts about the site. The other part is Fat Village right here. It's a little bit out of range, as are all these things of a quarter mile, but an Uber will take you there. Walkability in South Florida, as we all know, that might be pushing it. So what Fat Village is, it's kind of targeted towards me, the youth. And it's Flagler Arts and Technology District. It's kind of a wannabe Wynwood, but not quite there. And then up here we have more new retail and restaurants. Over here is what we're calling Flagler Village right here. Our site's down here. This is all like very newly getting redeveloped. So our site would be a future extension of Flagler Village, but it needs to take time because right now this is still brand new and not very tested yet. Here's just our walkability over to the Brightline station, and right here is actually the Broward County Transit and the Metro bus station, but we didn't choose to put this on because we found articles that it's proposed to be renovated into actually government buildings and facilities. which would totally scratch that idea. And here's the local context of what we found when we were walking around the site. We took it a step further. This is everything on the block and around the block. And as you see, we have mid to low grade Hampton Inn, future proposed grocer, government buildings, some rundown law firms and shops. I think I can speak for everybody that at this point, this isn't exactly where you want to live. You would be relying very heavily on future developers to come in and push this street and make it habitable. But right now, it's just not something we would want to do. And touching on the strengths again, it's close to the Bright Line Railroad Station. The site is within driving distance for Los Olas and the beach, not walking distance. And it is a logical future extension of that Flagler Village. And then weaknesses are far outweighing our strengths. The location is not populated by attractive social shopping venues at the current state. The nearby transit station is going to be redeveloped into government buildings. The street's narrow, poses logistical issues. The north parcel is already too close to these existing residential towers, and we would have to rely on future developers to come in.
Thank you, Brandon. I'm going to run through the regulatory analysis. I know you guys have seen a couple already, so I'll try to keep it short. So the site is located in downtown Fort Lauderdale, which is designated as the Regional Activity Center for the REC. The REC is made up of 5 districts. We have the City Center, the Arts and Sciences, Urban Village, the Residential and Professional Office, and the Transitional Mixed Use. Our site is in the City Center District. The City Center District is the city's high-intensity zoning district, intended for accommodating a wide range of mixed uses. So if we take a look quickly at the major points of the dimensional requirements, the City Center District is inherently very generous. So if we take a look at this kind of gives you an idea of what the max buildable footprint is for each site. And then the next layer of the regulatory analysis would be the character areas. The character areas come from the Fort Lauderdale Master Plan, and what they intend to do is create a hierarchy within the Regional Activity Center that we just saw a moment ago. So there are 3 character areas. The defining characteristic between them is basically scale. So in order from largest to smallest, we have the downtown core, near downtown, and the urban neighborhood. Our site is in the near downtown character area. So take a look at these diagrams. Kind of gives you an idea of what the character areas begin to do to the urban environment in the downtown area. It's also important to note that the character areas do not replace existing REC zoning, but they act as an overlay and are meant to complement them. Based on the zoning and the design guidelines, this would be our max buildable envelope with 30 floors and 7-floor podium. And this would be our envelope for our feasibility, based on our feasibility. So what you're looking at here is parking in gray, ground floor retail, in red, and then residential in yellow. And although it's not required by city center zoning, we did include parking. So what you're seeing here reflected is the buffer between the parking and the street front in order to preserve the pedestrian environment. So overall, this project is a two-phase project, like Kyle mentioned earlier, starting first with the south lot and then moving to the north lot for phase 2. And we'll touch more in depth on the timelines as we get further on. So now I'm going to hand it off to Alex so we can run through the market analysis.
Hi, good morning. So we're going to talk about the market analysis now. Okay, so when going through the market analysis, we want to look at the feasibility of this property and what would make sense here and why. We obviously know that it's going to be some sort of mix of residential and retail component. We want to know the highest and best use case of the mix of residential units that we would be incorporating into our analysis. And to do that, I took a look at the residential comps in the immediate area, the unit mixes and sizes, the rental rates and occupancies, and the amenities that they're offering, because we want to be competitive with the comp set. Also took a look at the retail rent analysis and the demographics of what's going on in the market. So here's an aerial of our site. Obviously, as we mentioned in the site analysis, that there's not too much going on right here. We're off of the main drag of Northeast 3rd Ave, and something to note is that this property right here is the Whitney, and that was recently developed. It was just opened several months ago, I believe back in April of this year. And it's a mix of residential and it's a mix of residential units. So when I looked at the residential comps in the area, we wanted to first go with the radius. So we wanted to check how far these comps are from our subject property. So I went half a mile and went right in the immediate area right there. Also wanted to look at the age of the building, so make sure it's a newer development, and that their occupancies are strong, or that they are leasing up if they are a new development. And these are our 4 comparables. So we have the Whitney, which is right next door. Okay, Whitney right next door, so that's adjacent. Oh, and we also want to look at how many units, because we want to really maximize the revenue that we can get from this property. We don't want to have a property that's going to have like 100 units. We want to have as many units as we can really get on this while maximizing our cash flow. So we looked at bigger developments of around 300 plus units, and as I mentioned, within a half-mile radius, and newer developed properties. So something to note is that the Whitney recently opened, and in June of this year just leased up 8%, and just last month, this is recent data, leased up 12%. So this property is leasing up at a rapid rate. Plus we have 2 stabilized properties, and Pearl Flagler Village, just 0.1 miles away, leased up 13% in July. So these properties are gaining a lot of traction. Okay, so then I went in and analyzed the unit breakdown. And as you can see, I have 2 properties here that we looked at mainly with studios, 1-1s, 2-2s. And then we have other 2 properties here with the 1-1s, 2-2s, 3-2s. And we realized that the newer developments, especially the Whitney, had a huge mix of studios and micro units. And through our research and articles and consulting with our mentor, we saw a huge trend towards micro units in the downtown CBD district, along with the need for affordable housing. So we did look at shared units as well. And we want to get competitive with these shared units, so we'll get more into that as well. And we also wanted to think about, okay, so these properties are getting leased out at a rapid rate, but how many new units are coming online? You know, what's our future competition? So there's been almost 20,000 projects approved and built in our target market since 2012, with over, it's almost about 10,000 units coming online in the next few years, with almost 5,000 developed. So we're looking at a 50% increase from this number coming online, and that's something really to consider when we look at the market absorption. Also, we want to look at the building amenities for our comp set, and obviously, like we spoke about in other presentations as well, that this is a very livable experience where people want to have prime amenities. So we allocated 35,000 square feet of amenity space with a pool, gym, what was it, fitness center? Yeah. So, and then and we also want to look at the actual units themselves. And to get competitive with these micro units, we want to have Murphy beds, built-in furniture, things where tenants don't really have to move in and out constantly and have a heavy cost to move in. You know, buying all new furniture for a small 500 square foot micro unit. So we want to make that affordable, and that's how we're also able to be more competitive with the market. Briefly look at the retail as well, because we do have a ground floor retail. There's a brand new development coming up in mid 2020. It's called The Motive. Centrally located It's gonna have about 23,000 square feet of retail. The thing is though, is that this is more on the main and main corner. As you can see, it has direct frontage right here on North Andrews Ave and 5th Street with over 18,000 cars per day. So the prime retail rent is going to be $45 triple net at the end caps, and then the inline retail is going to be about $40 a square foot. So when we did our underwriting, we realized that this is a stronger property, so we actually underwrote at $35 triple net for our retail, because we were looking at their inline space, but then also realizing that we don't have that direct frontage right on North Andrews Ave. So, and then, so now we know, okay, we know the properties, we know the unit sizes, the rental rates. Now, what's going on with the demographics in the immediate area? So to do that, I looked at the 1, 3, and 5 mile radiuses. And as we can see, the population obviously increases as it goes out, and the average household income is very high in our 1 mile radius compared to as you go out. And at a per capita basis is at 51,000. So I wanted to look at the growth rate in the area for the population, and it was actually quite astounding that the 1 mile radius growth rate for the next 5 years is going to be 28.1%, but the 5 mile is going to be 3.7%. So we realized that Fort Lauderdale as a whole, or well, the 5 mile radius from our location is not going to grow that quickly, but that 1 mile radius is really going to grow at a rapid rate. So that is good when looking at our absorption, fully considering that 50% of the currently developed units are going to be coming online in the next few years. That's also something to consider. And then to wrap this all up, this was actually really interesting when I was looking at the numbers. These are two completely different properties, completely different owners, and they're a half mile away from each other. But when you look at the unit breakdown, the numbers were practically identical. So we were looking at how could we make this more affordable. So we looked at the studios, and we looked at 2-bedroom shared. So that way we could really capture this market right here, the studio 1 bedroom, into our studios, the 500 square foot micro units, and then the 2-bedroom market as well, incorporating a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment style with a shared kitchen.
3 minutes.
Okay, and now I'm going to pass to.
I don't think I'll need all of that. So I'm going to walk you through some of the what I like to call downstream impacts of what we discovered throughout our process in the financial analysis. So here we can see our development program. That's a phase 1 beginning in obviously year 0, and getting we found a 12 unit per month lease up, which is slower than the market average, which was taking into account all of our market assumptions. And what was most impactful, I'll get to later, is the rent growth, which is something that people are attracted to multifamily for. So as you can see here is our unit mix and how we accomplish this. This is actually going to be shared by 2 people, so it's 88 effective bedrooms. Phase 2, just to give you a visual, same unit mix. We actually increased the retail square footage to 10,000 to maybe provide a restaurant when phase 2 can provide some foot traffic to that, or phase 1 rather. Here's some of the assumptions we used. Most notably about $126 million for project costs, split between debt, 70% LTV loan, just some facts about the program, and some of our expense assumptions. These are pro forma, untrended, which would not represent the income growth. Trended, and then at sale, which is a month 80 hold period, which is 6 months after the lease up of the second phase. Here's our uses, which gets us down to 420 per buildable square foot. A number that's not easy to come by, but required a lot of effort, conversations, people who said I offended them by asking, but I quickly backed up. Also the conversation with PMG developer down in Miami had us figure out how much amenities space we would provide for these tenants, and that's where we came up with the 35,000 square feet, and to really justify giving them such small units. 220, and that's actually the average of a first phase construction hard cost of 240, and then second phase, just to really make sure we cover the end of 340 for construction hard cost. I'm not sure who can speak to that. No one guy, I think definitely can. And this gets me to the slide that really forces our hand in this. Yield on cost. What we see is that the whole idea of development is that you're taking on a risk to get a reward, and that's the basic finances, is the risk earnings trade-off. We've determined to have about a 6.2% yield on cost, and being able to sell that at a reversion rate of 5% doesn't necessarily compensate the development for the risk. That is to say, we could buy a stabilized property and not take on all this risk, and it just doesn't seem, especially with the assumptions on the market growth, that this project's justified regardless of what the IRR is. The risk is inherently bigger than a low teen return, which is what we have. That's very sensitive to increase in costs, obviously.
30 seconds.
Some cash flows we could see. The operating cash flows are financing our construction of the second phase, and that would also not be ideal for an equity investor who invests in a real estate product mostly for the cash flows. It's difficult to work in a sale after stabilization of the first phase, so we ended up having an 80-month hold, which will impact our internal rates. For that, I open up to questions. Thanks.
I guess so two things. One is that the presentation, the written presentation, and then the oral presentation, I thought were very consistent, and they really drove home the point that this is not the development project to work and to move forward with. I think as I was reading through the written, I was kind of looking for more of it in the oral, which just, you came up with all these reasons why it wouldn't work. I would have loved to have seen just a little bit more how you flushed out, maybe there's a potential opportunity we could overcome, or this is an obstacle, but maybe if we do this, and kind of carry it down a little bit further, because I think that the way you explored the data was very solid, and the presentation was concise. I just would like to have seen you guys go that little bit extra to see if there's a way to move past some of those obstacles, because I don't think you were far off. I think you made the right call in the end, but maybe there are ways that it could have been mitigated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I actually like that you started off the presentation with a quick introduction, a summary of the project. It gave you an immediate picture. I thought that was good. And I also like some of your financial slides. You had easy to read, returns, just the key metrics, so I thought that was very good. I thought your presentation was actually better than the report. I think the report could have just a little bit jazzing up, so but overall.
Thank you.
Tony?
I thought your presentation was better than your report. I found your report at sections lacking depth. You got into certain subjects, but you didn't go all the way into the subject. You didn't drill down enough, I think, for at least my expectations of due diligence. But you did enough to come up with a solid land use and conclusion, which mitigated, some of the problems with the book. The book needed editing. There were sections of really weak grammar and writing, and that's not good, because that becomes distracting to the person you're trying to borrow money from. If I can't put it any other way. So that just takes more time and effort to get there. But the 7-year sale, you didn't talk much about it. It's hard to find 7-year money today on the equity side. The debt guy, they'll take your interest forever. But the equity guys, I'm not saying I know everything that's going on, but it's hard to find equity guys willing to go 7 years today, and it's been that way for quite a while. So if you take that 7 away and say drop it down to a 4 or 5, this project might even be more than a disaster. You know, I mean, that's just an information thing. Okay, thank you.
It wouldn't help to have an earlier sale of the first phase. And
No, it wouldn't help you at all because your cash flow is not growing fast enough.
I gotta beat you up a little bit more, I'm sorry.
This way.
But, you know, to the point that Gloria and Tony have already made about the book versus presentation, pretty much of a night and day. The book is horrible, and the presentation was pretty good. There weren't, none of the financial, very little of the financial information that you got up here is in the book, so you must pull an all-nighter last night.
No, this scenario, last one said, this was the scenario.
But the point is not to beat you up so much on that part of it, except that you usually only get one shot at the people that are gonna give you the money. And when you send a book like that to them, you don't get a chance to do the presentation. They won't invite you. They won't let you come in. And so that's why it's so important to be able to do both. So I just wanted to re-emphasize how important that was.
So my simple question is, what will work? I know you basically said this deal is a non-starter, and I appreciated that, but then I was like, I'm sorry. I know you said this deal was a non-starter from the get-go, but then I'm wondering, well, why are we even here? You know? So give us a little bit more, you know, like how could you have done this? What scenarios would have made it work better?
So what we went with was multifamily feasibility. And our assumptions that got us to what this area will be when we come online is kind of what got us to our initial numbers, but our ability to lease up and grow that, we just couldn't really substantiate. I think that's what got us to our no decision. We tried initially to just have a full looking for a result, you know, going in. But we started to look at it, the numbers changed, but eventually we saw that the model was too sensitive to certain inputs that we couldn't confidently put in there. FF&E on a product like this, because of we were going to provide the Murphy beds, the furniture, and then just a lot of things that we weren't comfortable, you know, with our knowledge of the figures that we put in there. That we worked hard to find, but still couldn't with the IRR gift. Anyone else?
What a different asset class before if it was in a hotel?
We looked at like retail. I asked questions about putting a grocer in there, even though there's a potential grocer going 2 blocks away. I was like, why not? This is a trendy neighborhood. Why not put a Trader Joe's in with surface parking across the street? Then I talked to some people at work and others around. It wouldn't work there because they don't have the face presence, because we're not on a corner lot. We're, you know, one parcel west of 3rd Avenue.
Attracting Trader Joe's to lease is a problem in itself.
Yeah. So yeah. X that really quick.
Grocer was something we considered early. We kind of don't believe this area is walkable to grocers at this time. In the future, we could see that, but at this time, you can't say that you can get your groceries and walk downstairs. It's not the walkability of the store the broker would give you.
The Fresh Market 3 blocks away, and nobody wants to walk for groceries. 6 blocks total round trip, 90-degree weather.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. I was just looking for the creativity, because you're entrepreneur, right? You know, figuring out what would work. I mean, I remember talking to Jessica Golden, and we were talking about, you know, their properties, and then you know, Tony's attitude was to run away. You know, that most people would say run away from properties like that, but actually he'd say no, these are the ones you run to. Because nobody wants to be there, but it's an opportunity. So just a little thought further in terms of what you're thinking.
I only can add a few more comments about the report. I wrote a lot of negative things on this. To sum it up, I want to see more meat. If it's one word, it's pathetic. So for all the future students in the room, get copies and compare what has been done as write-ups versus presentations. Again, this is an example of a bipolar product. Report, absolutely no. presentation, thoughtful, graphically supported, a solid team presentation. I wrote down this is the second team where the gentlemen have the hands in the pants. This is not the way you present in a professional setting, but that's just a pet peeve for me. I spent a lot of time looking at those reports, A by content and by presentation for all of the teams. You guys have to step up the game. This is not something you can deliver, as my colleagues have said. To come in for equity for someone who wants to back you up in a project. If this would not be an assignment, what I have to deliver a rating after that meeting, I would have stopped reading this. Yeah? There's no conclusion in this thing. Executive summary is great. No conclusion. After all of this, a short summary of, hey, we went through all this passage, like you did in the presentation. We went all those hurdles. We make this really conscious decision, this is not feasible at this moment with those parameters, and then following up on you, Kona, what are the alternatives? Have we even considered, maybe say, hey, we put an option contract on that property and let it sit and ride? Just like that, as in, we think the location is really great, but we're not yet ready for the product on top of that. Yeah? And you don't want to lose that opportunity for the location. Again, presentation, completely opposite to what you delivered in writing. Not sure if that is crunch time issues, time management. I think it's actually more a time management issue than capacity in this team. I actually don't have a question. It's just, anyone here who speaks Arabic?
Say that again, sorry.
Arabic?
Arabic?
Have you considered that your acronym for your company, it means actually God or your Lord in Arabic?
This is the first letter I've used that.
Okay, we actually are slightly ahead of schedule, so if you want to take a 5-minute break, now is the time to do so, and we'll get started.
Being told them what we're doing again. I'm just going to talk.
Remember, you know it and you don't know. No, I'm not really, you know it.
To keep
I was up. I might have passed public now. I saw 3:30. Yes.
I'm feeling
Yeah.
So how are things? I see it.
I wanted to ask a question. Or an observation. I'm good.
I'll still roast you.
Okay, no, but what are you doing?
You go turn along.
The last one?
No, that's a 6.
6? This will be 3 or
All right, take your seats. We get started here in about a minute and a half.
Hey, how you doing?
Everybody grab your seats. Yay. 30 seconds.
That's number 4? Oh, that's something on this.
I think you wear that dress all the time.
I noticed you, Jay.
Only in the morning.
No, but common sense says I gotta dress up a little bit.
We worked hard, you know? We owe it to ourselves.
We've been here for this.
Everyone
Okay,
looks so
let's
nice.
go.
Hi everyone, my name is Alana Stewart, and I'm here with my colleagues Adriana Manuel, Nathan Johnson, and Alex Cohen, and we're here with A&N Development. And I'm going to talk to you today about a project proposal we have on 2 parcels of land located in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So first is the subject of the site. It's 2 parcel lands as mentioned, 1.33 acre parcels. It's actually owned by Los Nevados LLC, which is a limited liability company located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Both the parcels of land are equally 29,000 square feet or 2/3 acre lot. Because this is in downtown near Flagler Village, which my associate will go into later, the walk score is a 92 because it's proximity to different amenities. And now Adriana will go into the zoning.
Okay, so the zoning for our site, as you've heard it now 4 times, is RAC, so Regional Activity Center in the city center. And the vision for downtown is simple. It's live, work, play downtown. And that's something that our project really emphasizes. So the zoning, it's developer friendly. It's height limit, none. Parking, none. So we're good there. Makes it really appealing. As far as residential density in our subject site, it's not exactly where most downtowns are right now, but it is something that they're working towards. So they want to work towards 28,000 to 37,000 residents. Okay, so downtowns are known as urban deserts, meaning there's a lot of heat buildup, which makes it really uncomfortable to walk. But that's okay because the city found a solution. They're creating a 7-foot sidewalk easement, and basically that's to help with their goals, which is reduce pollution, decrease air pollution, encourage environmentally friendly green buildings, and increase pedestrian comfort. And this is the current accessibility in our site. These are the entrances and exits. And again, there's no parking restriction. So parking right now, what we're following is the basic ordinances of the city. And we decided, so what's near our site? So we created this list. Basically, we want to make it as walkable friendly because the walkability is around 92%, which is really good. So the Bright Line is only 4 minutes away. The bus stop is 190 feet away. The scooters, I can tell you personally, they're right downstairs. The car garage is only 4 minutes away. The supermarket will be right across the street. And the nearest coffee shop and bar are going to be located right across the corner at the Whitney and the Flagler Village.
So now I'll talk to you more about the site itself. So as you see, we have the south lot and the north lot. As we go in, they're obviously both vacant, and the north lot is located right next to a residential tower called the Whitney. To go more into detail about the local attributes very quickly, so the arts and entertainment, of course there's the Museum of Science and Discovery with the IMAX Theater, the Harmashi District, which is 2nd Avenue, which all of our residents will usually go out on to happy hours, bars, restaurants, Fat Village Art District. Government transportation, as Adriana said, is the Bright Line. The main bus stop is actually 190 feet away from the site, so you can, and it takes you throughout the city. And of course, the government offices are located on Andrews Avenue. And for retail and restaurants, obviously the proposed grocery store, we have shops, delis, and small restaurants and bars. To talk more about the employment centers located in downtown Fort Lauderdale, they're all with, all that we have on here is the headquarters located within a 5-mile radius. Just to go over a few, we have Styles Corporation, which sounds familiar to some people, I guess, but 25 miles away from the site. Auto Nation, Fortune 500 company. It's a small, large company, 26,000 square feet, 360 auto retailers across the country, but their headquarters is here. Broward Health, located 1.8 miles from the site, so if their residents have any medical emergencies, they can easily get to and from. School information is important, obviously, because a resident might have children or cousins or any family members. BCPS is a Walker Elementary, Middle School, and High School. There's 8 private schools within a 4-mile radius. And college universities, there are more listed, but the main ones are the FAU Fort Lauderdale campus, Berry, and Broward College. And going to transportation just a little bit more, I-95 is located 1.9 miles away, which obviously connects Northern County to on your way to Miami-Dade County. We can also connect to the Florida Turnpike and more west of Broward County. And we do have a 7-foot sidewalk easement, so for the scooters, bikes, and for pedestrians to walk. Traffic count, there was actually a bigger picture, but to reduce the confusion, and it was like a lot, it was too much, so we zoomed into our actual subject site. So as you can see here, this is the marker for our subject site, and it's only 1,850 cars daily on average. Sorry for the small print, but that's actually a small number considering the numbers surrounding on the main streets like Broward, Andrews, and Route 1. So residents don't have to worry about being stuck in traffic just to get home. You can easily get there. And now I will toss it to Nathan, my colleague, who will go into the market analysis.
Okay. Here's some highlights of the market analysis that we did. First, we looked at I'm showing you a 5-year population change. Broward County, 5% increase over the next 5 years. Within the zip code, we went to use the zip code as a monitor, is about 30%, and within a 10-minute walking distance, it's close to 67% increase in population over the next 5 years. So we decided we're going to target millennials for this project. Folks between 81 and 1996, born those years. These folks here, not me included. I don't think I'll be invited. 45% population, and that's within a 5-minute driving radius of this area. That's the demographic of that, and their average salary is close to the nationwide salary. So the absorption rate in South Florida, and that's kind of a broad look, but it's kind of it underpins our idea that we can make this happen as from a demand perspective. That there were 3,500 units completed in that year in South Florida, but there were 6,400 absorbed, which shows me there's like a demand. There's a need for more units in the area. We think, based off of that and other research that we did, that we can absorb about 20 units per month, and to kind of get a gauge of how many we can. We're going to try to do some 100 pre-leased if possible. So we did a comparison of all the relevant apartments in our area, and this is just one in particular as an example we're showing here. So our numbers come in online with size and per square foot rate for the Whitney, for example. We have our estimate here because the Whitney actually doesn't have 3 bedrooms, so that's kind of an average of the other apartments in the area that are like what we're proposing. And this is a slide of kind of a collage of other parts from our market analysis, which underpins our notion that we'll make this project is viable. Within 10-minute walking of the site, there's $71,000 per capita income for the people in the area. We think that supports our project as far as per square foot. And for most buildings in that area, it requires 3 times your income before they allow you the rent. We think per capita, we think we're right in line with that. Retail is not a large part of our project. We do have 8,000 square foot in both of our buildings. That's our proposal. And we want to tailor the retail to support the people in our building and the adjacent building. The adjacent building is the Whitney. And so we're looking at small cafes, restaurants, that kind of thing. We noticed in our research that there's a leakage of funds going outside of our area to support these types of activities, and so we think that there's money there to be had presently, and we think by adding our building and our residents that increases that market, and so we believe that even though this is not a large part of our project, we'd be able to sustain that and it would be successful.
And Nathan, that's not true. You are allowed at the Houston because the Houston is an incredible project. And at the Houston, we have a saying that is coming together is just the beginning. And really that encompasses the city's idea of a live, work, play environment. And what's special about the Houston is that it has co-living units. And I know you've heard it before, but here I'm selling it to you because it's a 2-tower residential building, 425 units, 19 levels of residential, and a 5-story parking garage in each building. It has ground retail, just special for our residents, so you are invited. So what is co-living? Co-living, simply put, means community meets affordability. And basically, not only is it an option, it's an opportunity. And that's what we're really selling here. We want myself, Alex, Solana, to go ahead and be able to live in downtown. And we don't want your income to be just the only opportunity that keeps you away. So in our floor plans, you're going to see that we have individual leases. So apartment A doesn't have to worry about apartment B not paying rent. It really is up to that person there. You are invited to bring your friends, your family, whoever you want to go ahead and roommate with you. And hey, if you came by yourself, that's okay. We have roommate matching. As far as utilities, it's considered one unit, and it's divided per bedrooms occupied. Common areas are obviously all shared, and everybody has their own individual key and lock. These are just some of the samples. As you can tell, very airy, very open space, environmentally pleasing, appealing aesthetics, and it has that Wynwood encompass. Basically, you can see art wherever you are, and then a lot of community, just community. That's what we want. It's about coming together, it's about working together, it's about eating together, and it's about talking together. And let's see if we can make it possible.
Hey everyone, I'm Alex Cohen. I'm the financial analyst for A&N Development. So the Houston is anticipating a total project cost of around $166 million. This is going to include the project acquisition, the land acquisition, and of course the soft and hard cost of construction. Given a 75% loan to value, this means an initial equity of around $40 million from our investors, and an assumed debt for our construction loan of roughly $124 million. So for construction, we're anticipating around a 2-year construction period, and with a construction loan of $124,582,735, and at a 4% interest rate, which we got from CBRE financial documents, we will have accrued interest of almost $10 million. Now, of course, this construction loan will be interest only for the first 2 years, well, for however long construction time, which we're going to say is 2 years, and after that, we will have a permanent loan replace and pay off the construction loan. So our permanent loan is going to be based on our NOI at stabilization, which we're going to use a 92% occupancy, which we found as the normal around the Whitney and the other apartments. That seems like a safe number that we can obtain. And based on a going-in cap rate of 5.5%, which also came from CBRE financial documents to try and get a rough estimate of what we could expect our cap rate being, we get 5.5%, and that gives us a total loan for our permanent loan of around $130 million. And using a 3.9% interest rate, that gives us our total annual debt service of $7,387,285. So for the expected revenue of the Houston, we're anticipating a potential gross revenue of $14,577,160. and this comes to about a $2.81 average rent per square foot. This again is right in line with the nearby properties, and we feel like we even went a little bit under in some areas. And our total cash flow using an operating expense of 39%, which if you look into the report, you can see a little bit more details of our construction costs and our expenses of how we got 39%. That gives us our total cash flow of almost $1 million, $500,000, and that's going to be during stabilization. So for the Houston and with A&M, we decided that we're going to have a holding period of 7 years, which includes the 2 years of construction. We had gone through it a couple different ways. You know, do we want to go with a permanent loan? Do we want to maybe try and sell right after construction? And I think for us, we decided to take the safest route just because of all these new projects coming in. Maybe our occupancy won't be as good as we're expecting that first year. So giving the permanent loan, holding with the cash flow coming in for year after year, it gives us a little bit more safety, and also, of course, increases our IRR. So at the end of year 7, we get a sale proceeds of $73,219,431. This, of course, takes into consideration 2% closing costs and the loan balance that we have to pay off at the end. And this gives us a return rate of 13% at the end of year 7. So in conclusion, we find that the Houston is a very feasible idea. There's a lot of different costs and expenses that we think we might have been a little bit nice on, especially the purchase price, which we have at $12 million. We do feel like that number could probably come down to around 8, and if it does, our returns are going to go now over 15%. We really feel the co-living option is going to open up our potential for lower rent. You can see in the report there's a more detailed per bedroom, and you can see how much per bedroom you can pay compared to a studio and a 3-3. It's $1,500 per bedroom and a 3-3 and at the Houston. Our return on equity raises above 5% after year 2 of operations. And now all we need is company, so please guys, join us. Thank you.
What's the preferred rate for the equity?
25%.
Okay, 25%? The interest rate.
Interest rate.
Preferred interest rate.
4%.
4%?
Very conservative. Trying to go really conservative.
I guess, so I've got two compliments and one I would have liked them better. I think in the written presentation, it includes a quote from Similar Styles Development, cautioning you not to go too low on your development costs, and you guys stayed above that, and I think that's good in the sense that you didn't try to rework your numbers just to make the project work. The second thing is I think that this presentation gave a much better explanation and overview of co-living, how it can work, the aspirational aspect of it, you know, all the things that entails. So I think that was solid as well. Third thing, I think that the oral presentation, a lot of time was spent on kind of a broad overview of the market, which is stuff that when you're presenting to an audience to invest, you're going to assume that they know a certain amount of this. And I would have liked to have seen more drill down into just how you project. You only scratch the surface with the creative elements of it, the design of it, those type of things. I would have liked to have seen a lot more of it and a lot less of the broader market stuff.
Thank you. Okay, so you started off with an aerial of the parcel, which I always like to see because it helps me visualize the site. I also like to see a site plan overlaid on the property, which you didn't have. But as a general comment, and this goes not only for you, but all the teams, there's been a lot of detail thrown at us up front as opposed to a general summary up front. So that's, I think you captured people's attention first, okay? I really like your slides. They were bright, very colorful, easy to read. I really like that. Alex, you were one of my mentees, so you get special attention. So I would say the fact that you brought up that you're using conservative assumptions is an important thing to say. At this point, an investor wants to hear. When you're talking about numbers, say 124 million, say 7 million, round. Don't go into specifics. You don't need to do that. Some of you came across as being a little bit nervous, a little bit swaying back and forth. Probably shouldn't do that. So, you know, try to be relaxed and maintain eye contact. But anyhow, good effort, and thank you.
Adriana, you're the happiest presenter.
so.
But take the advice, just calm down and everything. I know you.
So excited.
Go, Houston.
She's
you want to live
there.
But, well, I thought your book was great, so I wanted to go into that. You didn't talk about, and I don't know if the other, on the co-living, how precisely do you handle the asset management on that? Is it a normal asset management contract for a rental building, or is there a subcontract with somebody for all this co-living common space?
So yeah, the common spaces, they would basically be the utilities. They would have to work together to try to pay that, because most water companies start doing it for your bedroom, but they would have to come together for that. But everything else would be taken care of as one unit.
Well, some utilities, water and cable and things like that, sometimes that's included in the building.
Yeah.
We expect to do that. So there's not, we don't have that, trying to piece it together ourselves. So.
Well, I know for me, this co-living explanation today was my learning moment today. I'm the first to admit there's something to learn every day. You know, I don't know if any of you guys, the books, are just late to my thought, but it came up that the 3rd Avenue, which is the narrowest street.
That's true.
And it only has 1,800 cars a day or something like that. It looks like a street that's going to need off-site development by the developer. But I don't think any of the books are considered the additional off-site work you would have to do. So let's not forget that that street will need a lot of sprucing up and improvement. So that's enough for me.
One more thing I could. You were the only group who mentioned employment centers. For around property, that's important.
What is it?
Employment centers, nearby employment centers.
Well, I thought you guys you did a terrific job in the written and the presentation. You guys were all really, really good, so congratulations. The presentation popped, which was nice. You hit the high points, you were well organized, you clearly rehearsed it, and so we appreciate that. It was pleasant to listen to and to be sold. So, a couple quickies. The operating expenses were 39%. Now, did you get that from somewhere?
Well, what I tried to do, and I did the same thing with the construction, was do it like a normal. I mean, look, we're not construction people here, so we don't know exactly how much things are going to cost. So what I try to do is what a normal company would do, and what your typical expenses are. And if you look in the report, you see it, all the expenses. And what we did is we just started seeing the typical numbers, like $2,000 per room for personnel. And after all those calculations, we got a 39% number. I didn't put a 39%. Like we figured out all the numbers total, and that's what got us 39%.
Yeah, no, you did a good job. I just was curious if you were able to verify that with any of the operating.
No, I mean I had a talk with a financial analyst, and he was kind of just giving me pointers of like we didn't want to be too far off on numbers, and if anything, want to be a little bit over. So at 39%, he said definitely don't be over 40. I didn't want to be under 35, and with the numbers we put in, it seemed like it made sense.
I'm going to guess that if this was a typical market rate apartment unit, that you would be overly conservative with that. But it's co-living, so I think it's going to cost more to take care of all of that public area. So I'm guessing you're right. But and just out of curiosity, because I too am learning about co-living, is do you buy all the furniture and put it in there, or do you allow residents to bring their own beds in, or their own furniture?
Well, from my experience with co-living and living in dorms and living in DEVL, basically some of them do have their own furniture, and I guess that could also be an option, and we could add that to our finances as well. But most of the time they bring
just more curiosity than anything else.
Yeah, they bring in their own bedrooms and like furniture that you would put in common areas and something.
And then why the Houston? Does it have anything to do with the witness?
Yes, it does. Yes, thank you.
Just a competitor. Competition more than anything.
I've been wondering that for 4 hours. And then the one slide said the witness.
We weren't sure if we were going to catch on. Like, I don't know. Competition.
Yeah. I made a promise that if you didn't get it, then we would never mention it.
We're gonna sell you on that one.
Good job, Eric.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on your question about the furniture. I mean, I think FF&E is a major expense. And so I wasn't sure, you did not include FF&E? Or you did?
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't. No, there are projects that are similar that I know Oz mentioned, like the ex-Miami and the site that is currently worked on in Fort Lauderdale. They do actually include in their costs, but that would just mess with our numbers. So yeah, we didn't include it.
The other financial question I wanted to know about is contingency. What were you carrying? What percentage?
3%, I believe it was. 5%? 5%. 5%.
That's 5% of
construction cost.
Construction cost. And you did factor in a design contingency or?
No, we have just one flat contingency fee.
It could be a little low. But overall, that's really high. Yeah,
there's a lot of
But I agree with my colleagues. Your presentation was spot on. You guys really did the work. And it was pleasing to read your report. So I thank you for going the extra mile to make sure that it was solid. That's all I have.
All right. My turn. This is humor. I have no sense of humor. I don't know where this is coming from. Report. One thing I really want to see is you plugging in all this market analysis tables and infographics. A little bit more text. If I don't know exactly what that table is, because it's coming from SREE, you need to explain this a little bit more. A little bit, not necessarily more meat, but explain that, like guide the reader through this, particularly if I want to drill down into, like Chris said, into more details. You gotta have that text combined with those graphics and images to actually make your argument in writing. Report, I think, was solid. Some more details here and there. I kind of missed out a little bit the details on the buildings and the setbacks, but you mentioned that now with the new strategy and the report and the presentation. Very well pleased. I can say that in both sides. Report is the highest score I gave in that rating round. It's not a perfect score, but high. Yeah, keep going with this presentation style. You need to practice a little bit more, young man.
I know.
You're very nervous and you stop. You're very nervous and you are like a radio moderator. But it's a good thing. Balance it out. I think in terms of coherence for the team presentations, this morning was the best teamwork ever. Particularly in the Q&A, everyone was giving a voice and their perspective, not just one person, and then the team was backing us. So well done.
Thank you.
Good luck on your
Not so fast. We got some other good things to say about the other teams too.
I want to add one last thing about presentation style, because I think it's very, very important. We all have different styles, work pretty well together. But one pet peeve of mine is when you're presenting, do not turn your back to the audience. Remember that. Because it's important to engage and to look people in their eyes and say, this is what I'm talking about. Do not turn your back to the audience. It's the same in performance. My wife's a vocalist, and you don't close your eyes when you're singing. It seems like it's magical and everything like that, but it's really a turn.
Thank you.
There's a tendency to keep yourself to keep looking at the screen.
Right.
You disconnect the audience then.
Right.
See, try to maintain as much eye contact, not on one person, but like, and then come back to the screen. I mean, I know what you go through because you're nervous and everything, but the point is, you're the one selling the truth. And so you gotta look the person in the eye and say, and obviously you really believe in this project. So, but you looking at the screen takes a little bit away from that. So anyway, good presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Group 5.
Good job. There it is. Now yes. I dropped coffee on one. Oh, sorry.
Hi, good morning, everyone. We are here to talk about the residences on 3rd. It is our capstone project, as we all know. Gotta use arrows. This is our team. We have Alec, I'm Christina, that's Juanita, and Isabel, and this is George Garcia, who did not join us today.
Now, the judge required you to put in pictures.
He did not, but if he did, it would be bigger than all of ours. No, he did not, but he did like it. So we have a quick overview of the site analysis. This property is called Reliant Flagler. It is listed with Vanguard Real Estate Services. As you know, it is here in downtown Fort Lauderdale, or technically just west of downtown Fort Lauderdale. It is, your 3 purchase options are the assemblage, separately with or without option to purchase a second, or joint ventured. We have, okay, basic map on East Detroit. There we go. So the location, it is in close proximity to downtown Fort Lauderdale, located near the downtown core, which is this funny area here. And it falls within District 2 of the Fort Lauderdale City Commission and within the Flagler Village Civic Association. It is identified by this little red slot here. As you can see, West Broward Boulevard, 95 Sunrise, and then the highway. So, as we said, it is, I actually don't think we said, 200 to 210 Northeast 3rd Street, and then 203 to 215 Northeast 3rd Street. So it is these 2 little blocks here. It's 2 sites, 4 adjoining parcels each, adjacent, what did I say about section? Adjacent to each other, separated by Northeast 3rd Street. Each one is 29,000 square feet, brings you up to a little over an acre combined. Both have been cleared for construction except for large trees on the properties, both properties, which we will talk about when we get to environment. That is a survey of the assemblage. South side, we actually do not have a survey for the north lot. We assume that that's the way it was done. Maybe they intended on developing the south lot and not the north, because this is all that was provided by Vanguard. So now we're going to compare the 2 sites. As we said, there is the north lot, which is surrounded by these large buildings, and then the south lot, which is not. As you can see, there are trees on the properties. Do you want to take this section? Or is that still me? Oh, okay, still me. So as we said, north lot, no survey available. From what we have seen, there are no easements or underground utilities found. There is a water main that runs on the back of the north lot, which we will cover when we get to public utilities. There are concerns regarding the surrounding structures. How is the development going to go up there when we have all these large buildings that are essentially encroaching on your site? restricts views, light, etc. As we said, south side, that is your survey provided by Vanguard. There are no easements or underground utilities found on this lot. There is a potential encroachment of a 6-foot chain link fence on the western property line. And we did get a report from Flynn Engineering that said, actually I'll let Juanita take that because she covered that report.
Okay, so that's on the next slide. We were able to get a quick analysis of our sites from Flynn Engineering, which was very helpful, and they recommended that we will most likely, with the development of this size, we'll have to upgrade the 6-inch water main located on Northeast 3rd Street. And they don't foresee any major issues going forward with the utilities. So, a quick overview of the neighborhood. You see a lot of different uses, which led us to believe that that there's potential for various programs, and mixed use was definitely something that we started thinking about at this point. And you also notice the vacant land is diminishing. There's a lot of development going on in the area, so it's definitely an area that's going to see a lot of change in the coming years.
So as we said when we were talking about environmental factors, there are large trees on both lots, smaller palms as well, but the large trees are the biggest concern, obviously. You do have the option with the City of Fort Lauderdale to either relocate or remove them entirely. Both have associated fees, impact fees. The property is not in a significant flood zone, and it's also not in a hurricane evacuation zone, or it's really in the 3rd zone if you want to be specific. So it's typically never evacuated. Public services, water and sewer. So this was a big deal for us, not because of the lines. So as we said, this is the north lot here. There's a line that runs along the back of the north lot. It's not under our lot per se, it's just along the back. We were told by George Garcia that there should be an easement for that. We did not find it in any of the information, in any of the documentation. We could not find an easement, but George did say that most likely there should be one. So it would be something to research further. Under water and sewer, our biggest concern was the City of Fort Lauderdale. They have been having trouble in recent years with water and sewer backing up, filling infrastructure. They're very concerned. There was a report done by a leading team, somebody that I don't really remember right now, so I'm not even going to lie to you, that said most of the city's infrastructure is failing. They're concerned about the water treatment plants and water safety.
I remember it was the lady from the Farmer Association.
She got them to do the report, yes. So they did this report and said that we are concerned about water safety and that sewer systems aren't max. So in terms of putting up new developments, they're concerned about how the sewage treatment plant downtown and how the pipes are going to deal with that. The City of Fort Lauderdale is borrowing money from everything else in order to pay for homeless removal and, homeless services and putting up parks and such. Like, they're borrowing approximately $20 million a year to cover other city expenses from water and sewer. So they are increasing rates, and it's becoming a problem downtown. So it is something to consider when we are putting up or thinking about developing this neighborhood.
So we further found an analysis done on the soil conditions of the site. This can determine what type of building you can allow from an engineering perspective. I know market conditions and all of that and zoning, but what does the site actually allow for from an engineering perspective? There was a report done by GFA International that said that very loose conditions are found at the top layer, loose to medium dense conditions, and dense conditions at the deepest layers of the soil topographic. This allows for piles, and that's kind of what we proposed in the construction aspects of the building. 30-story estimated height, 7-story parking deck, roughly 2,000 kips of pressure. The water table was found at 3 feet, and from that you can anticipate a lot of dewatering once you go into your foundations, which needs to be accounted for on your hard cost component of the financials. This overall analysis allows to, one, yes, we can build our 30-storage building with our parking, and two, it has to be a pile. We can't do spread footings or any light foundation product that's out there, so we're mandated to use piles. As part of the environmental analysis, we went to First Search Network, which is a widely used environmental platform from environmental engineers. We looked at over 42 commercial properties around the neighborhood. Typical issues are, your underground tank, it leaks, your petroleum gas station, it's putting diesel into the groundwater. But most of the ones that we did see, they were mitigated, had a date on which they were mitigated and extracted, which extracted and or replaced on those tanks. Some, in cases, they even brought them to elevation with concerns about water levels rising and stuff like that. You want to start getting those things off the ground. Additional testing is recommended for arsenic. Arsenic could be naturally occurring on this type of sites, and it has been found in sites around the beach area. So just as a due diligence portion, go look into it. The only thing it does is that you can send your site dirt to other sites. You can only send it to a landfill, but it's manageable. Looking at the traffic parking conditions for the area, so that we could in turn see what's really out there. We found, this is a heat map of all the parking available in the area. We found that most of it that is readily available, it's south of the Broward Boulevard line. This is concerning, being that we're up here, not a lot of public parking and readily available. There's plans with Fat City and such coming online later on, mostly past our development period, so we have to kind of mitigate and tackle some of the parking requirement for our residents at least. Additional buses will be, and by the way, there's this plan out there called the MAP plan. It's a $15 billion proposal for a 30-year transportation revamping of downtown Fort Lauderdale. That means new bus lines, re-engaging all bus lines that stopped working. You will be having an addition 1,200 new bus shelters and related amenities, which, making the city more walkable and whatnot. This is really adding to that with ride share scooters, your 7-foot walkways. Now the city's proactively spending the money to really connect all these neighborhoods and make it even more attractive to our buyers, right? One nugget that we were able to find through interviews was that not only do we have the Virgin Trains Bright Line about half a mile away, but there's also several other Bright Line stations being proposed to be completed by 2020. This giving you access within a half mile to Port Miami for cruises. You have Aventura with the shopping malls that are super popular. You have Boca, which is a great destination for Meisner Park and all those areas. Orlando, even with the fast train, by 2020, this is super attractive to the people we want to work, live, play, and live in our buildings. So that's kind of what we found. We spoke about walkability. 94%, 94 score is very high. It's very attractive to I have friends that live in Fort Lauderdale. They own one car, and the battery runs out because they don't use it. So they're always just going to work. They're going to La Solas, grabbing a drink, and that's kind of like their lifestyle, which to me is super attractive. I wish I had that. Good transit. We looked into the plan. It's getting much better, right? Bikeability and scooters all over the place. You have Uber, Lyft stations at the train station, and think about it, having an Uber readily available half a mile away from you at all times. that's pretty awesome. So that's
So
the,
moving on to the regulatory analysis, Christina will touch on that.
Okay, so regulatory analysis, Okay, regulatory analysis, we are looking at our sites, they're both zoned RAC, CC, as we all know. This puts no restrictions on height or density, and allows for development of many different things. It is also under an FAA zone. Oh my God, Christina, stop touching things. Sorry. It is also under an FAA zone because there's a helipad located in the FAU building on Las Olas. Both sites fall under this 175-foot zone. It means that we do have to apply to the FAA 45 days prior to construction in order to, it's not really an approval, right?
You just
It's
have to submit it with
kind
them
of a
because
notice.
we are considered an obstruction as we are going over a 200-foot
Right.
height. So we have to.
Which was reduced to 199 now. Anyway, so yes, you have to apply to the FAA 45 days prior to.
The entitlement process became something really important to us. It became a learning experience as well. I didn't know it was so complex and intense and expensive. It'll require a good team of professionals that have a solid set of schematic drawings to get approval for. It's important to have a good team of people with good relationships with the different agencies involved. We are proposing to entitle both sites and develop just the south site, but we believe by entitling the north site, it becomes a more valuable property and we have a little more control on what future development will happen on that site.
So, City of Fort Lauderdale has something called Green Your Routine, and there's a section specifically for developers. It covers these 4 key areas: promoting density and mixed use, creating spaces of value, connecting places, and inviting pedestrians. Why this is important? It's because it is tied into the Sustainability Action Plan, which essentially governs all the city's decision making, which is here. It articulates specific green goals and strategies, which is now being integrated into all cities, all levels of city decision making. These guidelines address things like building form, height and density, parking standards, landscaping, and historic preservation.
So furthermore, the master plan design guidelines were looked at, and that really dictated some design decisions going forward with the building design. So you can flip through. Just different components that they ask that you keep in consideration when creating your building and designing it. Such as the fifth facade, which is considered the roof. It's something that many people tend to ignore. So this kind of springboarded into our design process, in which I started dissecting the building.
I think prior to that, we should talk about when we got to our project. Like, now we had all these guidelines by the city and all these things imposing on us, and we started looking at the neighborhood and we started looking at the market analysis and deciding what was good for this site, what was good for this project. And we bounced a lot of ideas. We went through storage units, we went through
a data center.
Data centers, because we can't find any in Fort Lauderdale.
Office buildings.
We went through office buildings and retail. We went through an elementary school, because apparently we are in one of the worst elementary school districts. We're in the bottom 20 or so. We went through elementary schools, and then we figured, well, a lot of these things are nothing we know anything about, and it would be really difficult to research.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Of course.
So, started programmatically allocating the different sections of the building. So that first slide showed you where the retail was. We obviously know it needed to be downstairs at ground level. Then we incorporated the parking. Knowing that we didn't have parking, we didn't require any parking. We decided to set our own parameters, knowing that we were proposing a condo building and it would be difficult for someone to come in and buy a unit and not have parking. So we set our own parking requirements at 2.45 spots per unit. So that gave us our parking calculation. Then above the parking you have the amenity level. And then above that sit the residential floor plates. And then you have a rooftop pool. Once this exercise was done, we were able to take each floor plan and again dissect it even further. And as we all approached this project, I'm sure we all saw the first level and second level and that 7-story podium being fully parking. But as we started analyzing the ground floor, can you go to the and putting in all these components that you don't really always expect to have to be there, but an FPL vault is huge. It takes up a lot of space. The fire pump, the domestic water, loading zones, once all that was incorporated into the ground floor, we saw that this doesn't allow for parking downstairs, as we all thought. So we have a retail component, we have all the necessary areas that the building needs to function. And from there on out, we started our calculation of the parking with, real numbers that made sense.
Hello everyone, my name is Isabel and I'm the market analysis for G5. I'm here to talk to you and to touch base about Fort Lauderdale and why we have decided to build a mixed-use retail and condo. And as you know, Fort Lauderdale, I would say for the last 5-10 years, Fort Lauderdale have gone a lot of development. And once Fort Lauderdale was mostly seen as a tourist place where people would come and have a good time. But we can say in downtown it has evolved and it has a lot of headquarters, building and branches. So
1 minute.
Okay, when we decided to go to our project, so we looked into mostly vacancy and rent. This is why we decided to go with condo buildings, because we foreseen that we will have 77 units by 2022. So we figured that there was too many rental buildings coming into the market. So we decided to go to our to condos. Our focus group will be multi-family people that are in the market that moving in downtown Fort Lauderdale mostly for work reason. So we decided to go with the condo to facilitate them, people who want the option of buying instead of renting. And then with the accommodation of a lot of places nearby for like the Bright Line, the way the city's gonna reinvent the way that parking and route, so we decided to go with that. Okay, since we don't have a lot of time.
Time's up. Okay, questions from the judges?
All right. So two things. So in the written presentation, I thought the written presentation was excellent in the sense that it contained so much material, it was so dense and so detailed and so forth. And all you really had to do for the oral presentation was to distill that down to its essence, right? Hit the main points that you wanted to get across. And you guys completely missed it. The second thing is that a lot of time in the oral presentation was spent on things that weren't your project, right? They're spent on the area, they're spent on all this minutia that was significant and important, but wasn't related to the development. The third thing is that I was blown away by the renderings in the written presentation, the building, the design, the elements, the detail to which you guys thought through all these key components, and then the way that that detail translated into the detail on the construction costs and the pricing, all these things was excellent. But none of that was shown in the oral presentation. I mean, not one.
We went a lot of in-depth into ours because we wanted to prove why we wanted to see so bad.
Yeah, I think the way I always look at when you're doing a presentation, first thing, you tell everybody what you're going to tell them. You hit your 3 or 4 main bullets, and then you do a summary of this is what we've told you, and that would have been an excellent compliment to this. And I literally had in my notes, report so strong, I hope they don't blow it on the presentation before coming in today. So I would just, you guys obviously have the skills and knowledge and capacity. I would have just spent a lot more time rehearsing and practicing the presentation, getting it to its essence. Yeah, sure.
I agree. The presentation and the package did not match. I think there was a lot lacking in the presentation. One of the very big misses is there was nothing mentioned about the financials. I didn't find out until the very end if this was a condo or a rental project, and what's it going to sell for?
We had an abstract page that told us straight to the back.
I think she means in the presentation.
In the presentation.
Well, yeah, and it's sad because I'm a general contractor. I put the numbers on it. We didn't quite get to it. For the sake of it, you were going to hear about how our numbers were derived, the splits between efficiency, average unit cost.
We have a lot of options.
So, you know.
Yeah, I didn't know how many units you were planning.
Right, so that's, in our unit split, on an average unit split, average unit cost per type, including dent, the demographics, that's something, our amenity.
You don't get to do it now.
Right.
No,
you don't have to, yeah, you don't have to touch it.
So this is something that you count at the beginning of the project, you spent time.
At least highlights it.
Like key metrics, highlights, you know, there was time spent talking about water and sewer and fences and trees and I also think that the handoff between team members left something to be lacking. Christina, I would say in some of the way you say things, you have to use more professional language. For example, you shouldn't say this was a big deal for us, or a leading report by someone I don't remember. That's just doesn't come out. You seem to have a good handle on what you were explaining. You seem to have knowledge, but again, that's information that probably should come at the back end. So there should have been more focus up front explaining the project.
Well, I mean, on a close call, but the fact, I rated your book the best. I mean, you were way out there. I mean, I thought it was terrific. And I didn't write to myself, I hope they don't blow this. But it is very disappointing. It's like the patient was, the operation was a success, but the patient died.
Right.
And so you know, I mean, there wasn't one number. One of you should have picked up on this in your presentation and realizing you were pushing the clock, and stop whatever you were doing and get over to the financial, because this is the business we're in.
Absolutely.
It's all about money. You did fabulous research. I mean, if I had to create a due diligence to-do list, I think you almost covered the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's not going to get you the loan. That's not going to get you the approval. That's not going to get you anything. So I guess hopefully the lesson here is you should have rehearsed better. You should have went through a drill and make sure your time management was correct. And it looks like there was no time management. And I agree, it was lopsided by the team. I think you dominated the presentation. I mean, don't take that personal. I mean, the point is, no, I mean, you were enthusiastic about everything, but this is a team.
Right,
And
no, I think like they came at the end and that was it. Like her section, she just started and his was last, so that's where we
all right,
fumbled it.
I'll stop.
I'm not gonna pile on, you already, I mean, my fellow judges have already talked to you about the issues. But I would add two things. I do take a little bit exception. I liked the book. I thought it was really good. I rated it highly. But in every one of my little boxes, I also wrote that it was too long. It's not gonna get read. And I also wrote, just